There we go. All right, guys. So thanks for coming in today. We're now live here with the great Bradley Benner of Semantic Mastermind. So Bradley, thank you for coming in, man. Really appreciate it. This is actually only for the Platinums today. The first one was shared to everybody. It was up on YouTube. People reference it all the time. I'd love to put this up here, but everybody was screaming, dear God, no, it's only for us, only for Platinum. If you share this, we will kill your dog. And I'm like, I don't have a dog. They're like, hey, we'll find one for you. So it's great. It's only for Platinum. This is top secret and it's just for everybody. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass this over to Bradley before I start rambling and say some weird shit that I'll regret later. And I hope that y'all have a good time here. All right, Bradley, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me as well. Guys, I've got some stuff I want to share specifically today about GMB kind of ranking, because that's mainly what I do. Mostly GMB stuff, local SEO, and so I've been using Viper tools now since probably, I think around February. It's interesting because I'd gotten away from doing CTR. I always called it CT spam. So, click through spam, but I'd gotten away from using CT spam bots for many years. And I've told this story before. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard it, so I apologize, but I'm going to say it anyways, because some of you haven't. But I first learned about click-through manipulation way back in like 2011, I believe it was, from Ivan Budimir, who was kind of my primary mentor in the local SEO space. He had a course at the time with Michael Taggart, or Michael X, as some of you might know him. It was called Maps Magic, and it went on for like 2.5 years. And it was every Friday was a Maps Magic webinar. And it was, Ivan Budimir is a savant. He was just insane. The guy was a total nerd as far as like, an SEO nerd and a data nerd and that kind of stuff. And it was just, he inspired me like nobody else. And so I attended almost every Friday. And if I didn't attend it, I would rip it into like an MP3 audio and listen to it when I was driving and that kind of stuff. And anyway, he brought up, he was like a patent nerd too, right? So he would always pull up Google patents and then kind of dissect them and explain them and that kind of thing. And way back then, he brought up a patent that he dubbed it the site weight patent. And I'm sure that wasn't the official name, but that's what he called it. And it was, he basically showed how, like, there were some diagrams from the patent and everything else. And he was explaining how if there were two sites that were equal in on-page factors, which I know it's, this is theoretical as far as like trying to explain this, but if there were two sites that were basically identical as far as on-page factors and off-page as well, so their optimization factors were about identical. If one had more of a navigational search, more navigational search queries, and that would be like brand searches and variations of brand searches, that one would always outrank the other site, the competing site. Always. Like, that was just built right into the algorithm. And it makes sense. Even way back then, it made sense because it shows that brand has more authority, right? Because people are searching for it by name. So therefore, it should be ranked higher than a generic keyword type search because people know it by name. It's more authoritative. And so way back then, there weren't bots or tools to do this. So when he taught that kind of method, like and explained what the site weight patent was about, at the time we would use, and he taught us to do this, was to go out and hire microtask workers. So Mechanical Turk, Microtask, microtask.com, I think, was another one of them. There were several of these types of microtask sites where you could go and you could put in, say, like, okay, go search for this keyword and then go find whatever URL it is that you wanted them to click on. And the idea was, it wasn't that simple. Like, we would create these microtask jobs where we would tell them, like, okay, search this keyword and then look through the search results to find this particular URL, click on it, and then copy the 5th word in the 6th paragraph on the page and paste it in as the answer. And so what that would do is it would force the microtask worker that you might pay 3 cents for this to be done, right? 3 pennies, or 5 pennies, or 20 pennies. And that's how you would manipulate how fast you would send traffic to your sites, would be based on how much you would pay the microtask workers. Because if you paid 20 cents per microtask completion, then you would get flooded with clicks, and you would set a budget and you would burn through your budget really, really quickly. But if you would set it to like 2 or 3 pennies per microtask completion, then it would be dripped out a lot slower because people, the microtask workers wouldn't race to go do something for 2 or 3 cents, if they had other microtasks out there that would pay higher. So that was how we would kind of like, manage the speed with which the clicks would come through, the searching clicks, right? But we would do the like 5th word on the 6th paragraph or something like that, because that would create dwell time too. And it would force them that when they would land on the page, like, for example, if we would just send them to a page and then tell them like, just copy the title and paste it into the answer field and hit complete. And that would be like whatever answer they put in the field was their way to prove that the task was done. But so I learned, again, through Ivan to kind of do these tricks where you would have them have to go hunt for a specific word and then paste it in, because that would create scroll or dwell time, scroll depth. And then, they would paste it in. And so that would, add some more engagement signals to the page. Like instead of it just being a visit, it would be a visit. And then there would be some, in dwell time and scroll depth and things like that. So it was, really, really powerful. And it would, I remember at the time we did that, it would like within 2 or 3 days, you would have results, right? So you would start doing search and click traffic or CT, at the, again, I didn't call it CT spam back then, but search and click traffic with microtask workers. And in a matter of just, sometimes overnight, like no shit, within 24 hours, it would start to rank. You would move the needle considerably. And so I did that for several years where I ran microtask campaigns on various platforms for search and click traffic. And then I remember around, I think it was 2014 is when Dan Anton came out with what was called crowdsearch.me. Crowdsearch.me. I'll never forget that because it was a beautiful tool. It was the first that I'm aware of, the first kind of CT spam tool that was at least the first big, like the first one that was made commercially available in a big way. I'm sure there were probably some ninja SEOs that had coded some of their own stuff that they were using in-house, but as far as being something that was promoted, crowdsearch.me worked, and it worked like gangbusters for about 2 years. And then it started to decline. The effectiveness of it started to decline, but for about 2 years, that was my secret weapon. I mean, I say it was secret weapon. It was secret weapon to clients, but I promoted the shit out of that for Semantic Mastery because it was a great tool. It worked fantastically well. But then it stopped working. Like it started to decline, like as far as like the effectiveness started to decline. And eventually it just really just flat out stopped working and stopped moving the needle. And I think I really, we kind of traced it back to being, because it was using commercial IPs, right? It was using commercial proxies. And it was very easy for Google to determine like, hey, any traffic coming from commercial proxies can be disregarded entirely. So that's kind of, I think, what happened with that. And so I got away from doing it. I started using Google Ads shortly thereafter, probably. So I think probably by 2017, maybe 2018 is when I'd completely stopped using CT spam tools because they just weren't really working. And then at that time, I really started getting into doing Google Ads for clients as well, and for lead gen stuff, doing search ads. But so I started doing Google Ads, and then I started getting into YouTube ads. Justin Sardi is the guy that I kind of learned how to do YouTube ads from, and started doing some kind of traffic signals through YouTube ads because it was cheap. You don't want to send traffic signals through Google search ads. It's too damn expensive. But through YouTube ads, you could get it relatively inexpensive, a click. However, what I found over testing for over a period of, I've been running YouTube ads ever since I started, probably around 2017, is that unless you have a really compelling offer that you're going to, promote or pitch in the YouTube ad, it's more about views than it is clicks. Like, in other words, when I buy traffic from YouTube or from Google Ads for YouTube videos, I'm really buying views. If at least for SEO purposes, unless I have like a really compelling offer in which I'm trying to get a click back to my landing page. But a lot of the times, and this is probably blasphemy to your group, Michael, but I know that a lot of people here are here because of YouTube stuff. And I just quit doing YouTube SEO altogether around that time when I started learning how to use YouTube ads, because I was able to rank YouTube videos by buying traffic from Google Ads. Like, we still did all the traditional SEO stuff, right? With traditional, on-page SEO for the YouTube video itself. We optimized the metadata of the video file before uploading it. do all that kind of stuff. You know, it would run through a syndication network because it would publish to my channel, which was connected to, especially if it was YouTube stuff. Like, you know, a project where I was using YouTube as my main source to generate traffic. And then I would have multiple syndication networks, 2-tiered syndication networks tied to my YouTube channel. So all the normal, like traditional on-page stuff would occur, but I'd never, like once I started learning how to do YouTube ads, I stopped building additional links to the videos and doing, you know, a lot of embed gigs and all that other kind of stuff. I know they're still effective, still are today, but I just stopped doing it because I would get all, you know, through the initial on-page optimization during the upload process. And then when it would automatically syndicate through all my networks that were all tied together, that was all the extent of the SEO that I would have to do to those videos, because I could just set up a Google Ads campaign to buy engagement signals, traffic signals, views directly to the video. And I could set it for, I mean, like I've got campaigns, no kidding, that I run for 50 cents a day. So that comes out to $15 per month in Google Ads that sends a steady stream of real verified Google user traffic to those videos. And so I was able to rank videos for like local SEO terms and things like that with Google Ads. So for a long time, and that was using YouTube ads. But then when I started trying to apply that sort of method to websites and GMB stuff, I found that I wasn't able to get as many clicks, because when I was buying views from YouTube ads, you know, again, it was mainly about the views. So the engagement signals from the views themselves would help them to rank in YouTube and ultimately on Google as well. But I wasn't getting a lot of clicks to the, you know, to whatever the ad click URL was. And that was fine because that wasn't my intention with those ad campaigns when I was using them for YouTube. But when I started to apply that for websites and GMB stuff, that's when I realized that the YouTube ads were better for buying views, but not as good for sending clicks, because the clicks were few and far between. I might be able to get views down to a penny a piece or 2 cents per view, but it might take, you know, 30 views to get a click. So I would end up paying 60 cents per click, average cost per click, right? And so from then I started like playing with display network ads, so Google display ads. And at the time that I started doing that originally, it was still back in the day where Google display ads, you had to create your own ad sets. So like all the different versions of the ads, like the different sizes, you know, skyscraper and rectangular and square and leaderboard ads and all that kind of stuff. This was back in the day. And so you'd have to hire a graphic designer, to create an ad set with all the various formats. And then if you wanted to split test ads, you'd have to go back to the designer again and have them create a whole nother set of those ads with some slight modifications or tweaks to them. And it's a real pain in the ass because it was time consuming. I'm not a graphic designer, nor have I ever had the desire to be a graphic designer. So I never wanted to learn how to use any tools to create my own ad sets. So I would just hire them from like Fiverr or whatever. And so then you'd have to pay money, then you'd have to wait till they were designed and then delivered. And if you want, you know, you guys know the whole process. It was not very efficient. And so I just didn't do it. I just didn't run display ads for a long time. Fortunately, about two and a half years ago now, display ads, the display network, in order to create an ad in the display network for Google Ads, it's so much easier because all you do is upload a few images, square and rectangular formats, and then you upload up to 5 headlines, 1 long headline, which is up to 90 characters, and then up to 5 descriptions, which are up to 90 characters. And then you just set your targeting and all that other stuff. But the ad itself, Google creates responsive display ads from the images that you upload, your logo, and then the 5 different headlines, the long headline, and the 5 descriptions. So it will just mix and match images, headlines, and long and descriptions. And over time, it learns through its own AI, it learns which combinations produce the highest click-throughs, right? So it will auto-optimize based upon what you upload, and you know, it takes some activity levels for it to start to accrue data, and it will start to auto-optimize the ads to where it will deliver the combinations that produce the highest click-through rates. And what's interesting is you can always go in and view asset details to see, and it'll tell you like best, good, or poor, or something like that. So it'll tell you like which headlines are performing best, which ones are performing good, and then which ones are performing poorly. So you can go in and actually continue to further optimize your display ads to get, you know, all goods, and always one version of your images or a couple versions of your images and one version of your headline and your description will end up becoming best, right? But it's that was very, very effective because, and I still, and by the way, just to be 100% transparent, I said I always am with all of anybody that I, you know, share anything with. I still use Google Ads today in conjunction, in tandem with Viper Tools, right? There's a reason for that, but and I'll get to that in just a moment. Most of you probably already know it because I know you guys are the Platinum Mastermind members, so you all are the savvy bunch of the Viper Tools group. But with Google Ads, like I said, once it became much easier to develop these ads, because I don't need a graphic designer anymore. I just upload my own images and write my own headlines and all that kind of stuff, and it works really, really good. And the beautiful thing about that is, sorry guys, let me shut this up for a minute. I'll close that down so that doesn't happen again. Anyway, I was getting a call. So the beautiful thing about that is it's really easy to set up the ads and they run great. And I've been using Google Ads for kind of CT manipulation, click-through manipulation for about the last 2.5 years. And it works incredibly well. And one of the reasons why I think the Google Ads works so well is because when you you can set your geo-targeting so you can get only clicks from people that are physically located within a set geo-targeted area. So you get local IP clicks, or at least clicks. The IP might be somewhere else, but Google knows, especially if they're clicks coming from mobile, where the user is at the time that they click, right? So it's the same thing that Michael built into Viper Tools with geolocation. But you can also pick audience segments, right? So, and it's the name has changed over the last couple of years several times. Right now they call them custom segments or audience segments, excuse me. So like one of them is that I use a lot is called in-market segments, right? So an in-market audience segment is somebody, remember all the clicks that you're buying from Google Ads, and I'm not trying to sell anybody here on Google Ads. I'm just explaining kind of what I use and why I do it in conjunction with Viper Tools. And again, I hadn't used any CT spam tools for years until I saw Michael's, I was on Michael's email list, and I kept seeing these emails coming through with, you know, Michael bragging about some of the members of Viper Tools getting results. And like back in February, I was just like, you know what? I haven't done any CT spam stuff other than Google Ads in several years. I'll give this another shot. So I reached out to Michael, was like, hey man, I saw your email. I want to check it out. And he was like, okay, yeah. So he set me up with an account, and I started testing with it. Lo and behold, Michael figured it out, right? It works. But so back to the audience stuff. The in-market audiences, what I like about them the most is that Google, first of all, they're all real Google users tied to real Google profiles, most with Android phones, right? So like they're real people, and Google knows that. And an in-market audience segment is Google has placed the people in that segment there because they have recently searched for and engaged with content online around a particular product or service, right? So Google deems or determines that they are likely in market for that product or service because of their recent search history. And from what I understand, it's their last like 30 days of search history and the content that they've engaged with and that kind of thing. So an in-market audience is weighted heavier than just like no audience targeting and just targeting on a geolocation or, you know, a geographic targeting segment, if that makes sense. So in other words, if I were to just, there's different types of levels in Google Ads, and I don't want to talk about like all the, but there's like affinity audiences, which means those are people that have a long-term like general interest in that particular topic, right? But then there are, you know, there's topics, then there's keywords, and there's all these different ways that you can set up your ad campaigns. But in-market audience segments are great because Google has determined that those people are likely in the market for that product or service. And so there's a home and garden services in-market segment. And then there's sub-segments in there for those of you that are doing, you know, contractors, which is all I deal with anymore is contractors. There's like roofing services, there's landscape and landscape design services, there's home remodeling services, right? So there's really specific segments in that home and garden services, which is an in-market segment, right? There's not one specifically for tree services though. So typically, and that's who I deal with, is tree service contractors. So typically I will just select the home and garden services audience segment, and it includes all of the sub segments or subcategories. But I found that to be really relevant. So the point is, there's that. Then there's also life events audiences, which is another type of segment. That's like new homeowners or recently purchased a home, recently retired, started a business, recently either joined college or graduated college. So there's the life event audiences. Those are weighted very heavily as well. And then there's also, what's interesting is there's what's called a custom segment, where you can actually create, you can tell Google to create an audience segment for you by setting parameters, criteria, that any Google user that meets that criteria, if, you know, as long as they meet that criteria, Google will place them into that bucket that you create as a custom segment. So here's how you can create a custom segment for, you know, whatever industry you're in, even if it's something that they don't already have a predefined audience segment available to you for. Okay. So all of that was to say that I've been using Google Ads now for about 2.5, 3 years or so for click-through spam, and in very specific ways, because you can't direct. Remember, with the Google Display Network ad, when somebody clicks the ad, they go directly to the target URL that you've assigned to that ad. So, and I'm telling you guys all of this because I'm going to show you some pretty cool stuff that you can also do with Vyper to start manipulating things. Because I kind of learned this through this display network ads process. Because as I was saying, you can send people directly to a target URL that's connected to the ad. So when somebody clicks on the ad, it takes them to that URL, but you can't direct them to do anything else, right? And that's what I like about using the tools, Vyper tools, is because you can direct it to a degree. And then once the Kraken Vyper is released, we should be able to start stringing clicks together across multiple tiers or multiple properties, right? Right now, you can do that to a degree, but it's somewhat limited. But you can't do that with Google Ads, right? So I had to start figuring out a way to be able to manipulate things like search queries with Google ad clicks from a display network ad. And so that's why I started learning how to manipulate, started playing around with just manipulating the search query URLs from Google. So, and again, I'm just going to show you guys some of that today, because when you start to manipulate the search strings and you get clicks to those search strings, the URL from the address bar after a Google search has been completed, you can manipulate that. And when somebody clicks that, it acts to Google as if that search has been performed, right? Does that make sense? So it's like telling it, you can manipulate through sending clicks to a URL search string, as if somebody had gone to Google and typed it in and then clicked search, right? And so I was able to start not only manipulating for ranking purposes, right, by sending clicks to target properties, the GMB map URL, GMB posts, GMB website, obviously, you know, location landing pages or self-hosted websites or whatever. There's the benefit of that alone, just from local clicks, from a weighted audience, an in-market audience or in-market segment, is a heavier weighted click than somebody that's a non, you know, just kind of a general click, because Google knows that they're, you know, in market potentially or likely in market for that product or service. So it's a heavier weighted click, if that makes sense. But not only could just the clicks alone and the traffic, the engagement signals help, but then also I started to learn that you could start to force like a brand name into Google Suggest alongside generic keyword searches. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm on something here, where you could like start to, where somebody, for example, was, you know, in their local area, just start to search tree service, and all of a sudden they're going to see tree service, or they like tree removal would be a better keyword, but like tree removal or tree trimming. So a specific service, and then they'll see a brand name of one of my GMB assets, or, you know, either whether a client site or a lead gen asset or whatever, but they'll see the brand name pop up next to the search phrase tree removal in Google Suggest, right? So the suggested phrases in the suggest box, it would pop the keyword plus a brand name, and it stands out. And so I noticed that I started getting a lot of traffic from those kind of those suggested search queries. And there's a way that you can manipulate that with Google Ads. So all of that, during that time, we were at Semantic Mastery, my partners and I, we were at the time, we were partnered with another company called Rank Us Now, and we had this marketplace called SERP Space that we sold stuff on, and done for you syndication networks, and drive stacks, and G sites and stuff like that. Anyway, we had started to develop our own, try to CT spam bot, like Viper Tools. We tried to on our own, and we put over $100,000 into that, and we weren't able to get it to work the way that specifically Marco wanted. So we ended up abandoning that project, and then we ended up splitting from that other company, and we started our own marketplace after, about a year later. We started our own marketplace. Anyways, all I'm saying is we put over $100,000 into trying to develop a CT spam tool, and we were not able to get it to perform the way that Marco specifically wanted it to. So we abandoned it, and we lost over 100K on a project that never got off the ground. And so I just said, that's it. It can't be done. And that's why I didn't even attempt to really use Viper Tools until earlier this year. And it was just because I kept getting emails from Michael, because I'm on his list, that was showing results from other members of Viper Tools. And so I was like, let me give it a shot. And sure enough, lo and behold, after starting to test with it with just a few weeks, I remember sending Michael an email, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks after I started using it. I was like, damn, dude, look at the movement I've seen from GMBs. And that's why I specifically started testing it on GMBs. And I was like, man, this is working. So I didn't even tell anybody in our group, Semantic Mastery, about it for months. And part of it was, and I've said this before, so Michael apologized, but it was buggy. Michael was updating it all the time, and it was buggy, and it was frustrating at times. But because campaigns, have to create the campaigns, and then they wouldn't run, and all that kind of stuff. But it's and I see you, Michael, shaking your head.
I was getting ready to say, let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon. But it became way more stable over the last few months, which is why we finally brought it to our audience. And for that, I want to thank you, Michael, because you've reduced the workload considerably now that it's a lot more stable. so thank you.
Yeah, it's been that was really a painful time. There were a lot of updates, a lot of changes, and I expect unfortunately, the same type of thing's probably going to happen when we roll out the Kraken version. But yeah, once that gets stabilized, man, it's going to be freaking sick.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. So again, guys, I know that was kind of a long backstory, but I really want to kind of share with you like the evolution of all of this, and all of that to say, Michael's done an outstanding job. He's got a tool that works, and it works great. And as I mentioned before, I still use Google Ads in tandem with Viper Tools. And again, a lot of it has to do with, because I believe those clicks coming from real user profiles do tend to carry more weight, especially if you can get an audience segment that is relevant to your project that you're promoting. And one other thing about that is, what's really cool is when you do have a good audience segment that is relevant to whatever project you're promoting, not only can you, and I'm going to share with you guys today some of these search strings that you can use to manipulate and start to, manipulate suggest. But what's interesting about that, and I'm also going to talk about some ways to manipulate Google Maps URLs too, which I actually learned, and I always give credit where credit is due. Matt Boley, a lot of you probably already are aware of Matt Boley, but he is the one that kind of showed how to do what I used to do, what I had been doing with manipulating search strings. So google.com search strings with, and he basically showed me that you can do the same thing with Maps URLs. And I can't believe I'd never thought about doing that. But you can manipulate map URLs to start to kind of push what I call proximity push. And that's how you can start to push the coverage of a GMB map further than what it typically would rank for. And it's a way to send engagement signals to modified map URLs. And again, I call that a proximity push type of campaign. Credit goes to Matt Boley for showing me how to do that, which is essentially manipulating the URLs just like I was doing with Google search, but they're Maps URLs. And it was a brilliant strategy. And I give him, all the credit for that. So just wanted to talk about that. But you guys can start to manipulate kind of your own search strings. And but what I started to say was, what's great about having a good audience segment that is relevant to your project is that when you're sending real Google Ads traffic to these Google SERP URLs or to modified map URLs, the people are, if they're in market for home and gardening services and they're looking for a tree service or tree removal, tree trimming, whatever, then there's a good chance, and I've had this happen, I was buying traffic signals for SEO purposes, but I started getting some leads that would act like some actual leads from it. In other words, the click signals sometimes would convert into a lead. They would call or submit a contact form to request an estimate for tree services. And I was like, oh, wow, this is also a great thing, because now if I'm spending money, and again, I've got campaigns that I typically run. I'm not kidding, guys. I've got lots of Google Ads campaigns set up for like, $1.50 per day. So, no more than, even $1 per day is $30 a month, $30 a month. And it just runs on autopilot. I don't have to keep setting up campaigns and keep starting them over and all that. And it runs. And sometimes that traffic will actually convert to a lead. So it's very, very powerful. So, use them both. I'm not going to go into Google Ads today. That's not the point of it. I just wanted to give you guys kind of some background on that. And I would encourage you guys that are also using Viper Tools to consider using Google Ads as kind of an additional strategy. You'll see some kind of unique things that happen when you do both, right? So, okay, guys, I'm gonna grab the screen just real quick, and we're gonna get into some slides and some examples and all that, because I know that's what you're really here for. And guys, feel free to ask questions. And Michael, if you see anything come through, just interrupt me at any time. I'm happy to answer questions as they come in.
Will do.
Okay. All right, guys. So these are kind of the methods that I use for ranking GMBs. I started talking about Ivan Budimir and Maps Magic way back when. And this is by far, in my opinion, the most important thing. Of all the stuff that Viper Tools can do or anything else, guys, this is what and just seeing a lot of the posts in the group and things like that, the Viper Tools group, I can only assume that most people aren't even really doing brand searches. And if they are, that's not their priority. It's keyword stuff, right? And yes, it's important to rank for keywords too, guys, but I can tell you right now, the engagement signals on brand searches should be your priority. Like if all I could do with Viper Tools is one thing and one thing only, it would be, and I had to choose it, it would be brand searches, navigational searches. Just 100% transparent on that, guys. That is, in my opinion, that is the tip of the spear. If you guys are not doing navigational search queries, you're missing out on the power of CT spam or CT manipulation. And that is, again, all the way back to 2011-ish. And by the way, that patent, I think, was approved or whatever, like in 2008. It was like in 2011 when I learned about it from Ivan Budimir. So it's an old patent that has been baked right into the algorithm for a very long time. And site weight, you can manipulate site weight with navigational search queries or brand searches. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. New or poorly ranked GMBs. This is where I see also a lot of mistakes being made. And again, part of this has to do with, I did a post in Michael's group or a couple of months ago now, where I talked about the formula that I use for determining how many search and clicks to set up for any location. And I gave my formula, but I forgot that, you don't know what you don't know. You can't know what you don't know, right? And I understand that a lot of people took that as law, like, okay, this is what I should do, and I'm going to get results. When, if you've got a new or poorly ranked GMB, that's not, it's on 21 plus or whatever on the Maps GeoGrids type thing, the local search grids, and you go right out of the gate with 30 or 35% of the average monthly search and click volume of the average. So 30% search and click volume of the average monthly search volume, then that's going to look really suspicious, right? It's not right. If you're on 21 plus in Maps or anywhere outside of the 3-pack, and you're getting 30 to 35% of whatever the average search volume is for a keyword, there's something going on here, right? It's being manipulated, and the algorithm can pick that up really easy. So, the formula that I shared is a formula for a GMB that is either right outside of the 3-pack or is already in the 3-pack, and it keeps it there. And I never went back and clarified that, but maybe I should have, because I know a lot of people just took that information and said, okay, here's the formula, this will work. No, you have to ramp up to that. Right? You got to get in order to get anywhere but close to 30 to 35% of the total average monthly search volume, as far as search and clicks to your asset, it should be in the 3-pack, period, end of story. Right? So if you're not in the 3-pack, you should ramp up to that. And there's a way to do that. You just, increase it gradually. And as you start to see the map move, right, start to increase in rankings, then you start to increase the traffic signals. But again, starting with brand searches is always where you should start. So we'll get to that in just a minute. We're going to talk about some of the search queries and the different types of strings that I just mentioned, and a way to manipulate Google Suggest, which you can absolutely do with Viper Tools. And then we're going to talk about some Maps campaigns as well. And then, the referral campaigns, which I think is, if there was if I could only do two things with Viper Tools, the first choice would be brand searches, and the second choice would be referral campaigns, not keyword search and clicks. Although again, like I said, it's a powerful feature, no doubt. Referral campaigns I found are incredibly powerful as well. Okay, so we're going to go through those one at a time. Richie Moore says, what is the search volume for a brand search that is a new brand or not a major brand in the area? That's a good question. You know, I just go in and, you know, I'll do over the course. I always set up my campaigns in increments of 7. So in other words, like, and I'll talk about this, like if I do a press release, then I'll do a heavy traffic campaign to the press release for 7 days. And then I'll do a more, which is a direct traffic campaign and then clicking through. So it's a direct traffic campaign to the press release URL, and then it clicks through in the specified URL field or whatever down through to the URLs that I'm promoting in the press release, right? And so I'll do a real heavy traffic campaign, direct traffic campaign, not search and click, for about 7 days. But I'll also set up a simultaneous 28-day search and click campaign. And I do everything in 28-day increments when I'm doing, like, you know, campaigns that I'm going to set and forget. And what I will do on like a 28-day, if it's a brand new, if it's a poorly ranked but existing company, you can be more aggressive on brand searches. But if you are, as far as volume, you can be more aggressive on volume. But if it's a brand new one, then I might do, you know, maybe 10 or 12 search and clicks over 28 days to start with, right? And then on month 2, I might raise it up to, you know, 18 to 20. And then on month 3 is where I'll probably do it somewhere around 1 per day, 28 to 30, something like that. Because throughout that whole process, I'm also going to be running traffic through press releases and citations and GMB post silos and everything else. So Google is going to start seeing activity occurring in that GMB anyway. So it makes sense for the brand search activity to increase as well, right? The volume of brand searches to increase as well throughout that time. So I just ramp it up. But yeah, if it's a brand new one, then I would say anywhere like, you know, 10 to 12 search and clicks for the brand name. But then here's the thing, guys. You can increase the volume of your brand searches if you are adding modifiers such as these, right? So it's not just about searching the brand name. You can also search domain.com. You can, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. You can only search domain.com. Like, I don't know if that works in the GMB Viper, because it might, but I've not tested that. But you can search, and I say domain.com. It's obviously whatever your client's site or project site is, but you can do a search for the domain name and then have it click through from the Traffic Viper. The company name itself, okay, that's a standard brand search. Then the company name plus the city in which it's located, right? So, you know, like I live in Culpeper. So let's say, you know, let's say Bradley's Tree Service Culpeper, right? Then Bradley's Tree Service contact, Bradley's Tree Service phone, and so that's like literally putting in the phone, and that'll force a rich snippet. So let's just give it some examples. You guys are, yeah, you see my screen. We'll just use a couple of examples. So like, for example, we'll say I've got a brand that I typically share for these kind of training events. So let's say Ruckersville. So it's kind of a rural area in about 40 miles south of me. And I'll zoom in on this a little bit. So this would be just a brand search for that brand name, right? You guys see that? So then if I do like phone, a lot of the times now in this case, it's not going to do it. Probably because I don't really have I have a self-hosted landing page with this site, but it's not really optimized properly. It's just temporary. It's a placeholder. But let me see if I can think of another one. Anyways, a lot of times you'll see a rich snippet with the phone number at the top. You can also do like hours, right? So if you say like hours, a lot of times you'll see a rich snippet at the top that has the hours of operation. So like, for example, let me just use a different example. Let's say semantic mastery, for example. And it's not showing that hours there, but let's try phone. See how there's a rich snippet. So that's what I'm saying, guys. You can try, and it doesn't have to force a rich snippet. I was just giving you some examples, but a lot of the times you will, you know, it'll show rich snippets for like phone, hours of operation, location, things like that. So these are all different types of brand searches so that you can vary it up so that you can increase your volume of search and click, right? As Richie was just asking, like, you know, how many do you do for a brand new? If you're doing a brand new one, like I said, I keep it, if it's just the brand name search alone, then I keep it low. But if I'm going to work in multiple versions of these kind of brand searches with these other modifiers in there, then I work them in, and it allows me to increase my volume. Does that make sense? Say, Dave says, when you say 20% of traffic via Viper tools, is that percent of total traffic or percent of traffic for specific terms that you're talking? That's what, Dave, that's what I meant. I do, when I talk about a percentage of the search volume, the average monthly search volume that Google Keyword Planner tells you. And that was just the formula that I shared, right? So again, like here, I've got this open. And guys, remember, here's the thing that I want you guys to understand that Google Ads Keyword Planner is a Google Ads keyword tool. It is not an organic search volume tool, right? So there are keywords that absolutely get organic search volume that show 0 search volume in the Google Ads Keyword Planner because nobody's buying ads for it, right? Nobody's bidding on that keyword, which is why it doesn't track it and show any search volume metrics for it. But there are absolutely keywords out there that get searched and organic search volume that are not listed in the Google Ads Keyword Planner. So whatever numbers show in here, and I'll demonstrate what I mean in just a moment. They're only like indicators, right? They're like kind of guidelines. It's not law. These are not accurate search volume numbers. Trust me, they're not accurate. And by the way, I know if you guys are not running Google Ads, you're not even going to be able to see accurate metrics. They're not accurate to begin with, but you're not even going to be able to see specific search volumes because they're going to give you a range unless you're a paying advertiser. Google Ads throttles the keyword tool and does not provide you with, specific search metrics or volume metrics. They will only give you a range. So if you're not advertising, spending money with Google Ads, you're not going to get any kind of usable data really. So you have to use another keyword tool for it. Okay. But I do run ads. So it's not a problem. So anyways, let me just pull this open, for example. Let's see, we'll go with Lynchburg. That's fine. All right. So I've got a set, just give me 1 minute. I got a a specific set of keywords, excuse me, because I deal with just one industry anymore for the most part. I've got a few clients that are in some other industries that have been with me for a long time, but all I look for now is tree service contractors. That's all I deal with. That's all I'll take on is new projects, is tree guys, and that's it. So anyways, let me pull this back open. Okay, come on, Zoom. There we go. Okay. So here's an example of the keywords that I typically track. I know how small. I'll zoom in a little bit. These are the same set of keywords. Like there's a ton of other keywords that can produce some, traffic to a site. But these are the keywords that produce the vast majority of all traffic for tree service contractors. That's it right there. And then obviously the ones with location modifiers. It's just the same three keywords, just with location modifiers. But these are the three, basically the keywords right here. And then to kind of a little bit of a lesser degree, they're shown right here, tree removal service and tree trimming service. But these keywords right here are always the keywords. So all I do in a new location is I would just come into Google Ads and I would paste these in under get search volume metrics. So if I go back to the previous screen, just give me a minute, I'll show you what I mean. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So we'll go to this one, click here. So go to the Google Ads Keyword Planner, you click into here, and then you paste in your keywords, right? And in this case, it would be these. I'm just going to go ahead and go with this one because it's already done. And then once it's done, I like to, first of all, by default, it's going to be listed up here as United States. So what I always do is go in and localize my search area, right? So in this case, it's just the city of Lynchburg. If I wanted to, I could go to kind of a little bit broader. It depends on the project, guys. A lot of the times I'll leave it at just the city that where the GMB actually is. But in some cases, you're not going to have like any search volume metrics. So you might have to go to the broader county level because typically a city is within a county. Not always. Major metropolitan areas, they're kind of like on their own. But a lot of the times a city is located within a broader county. So it just depends on what the data shows. If it's really limited, then I'll go to the broader county. In this case, Lynchburg has kind of got like 3 different counties around it. One of them is Campbell County or Campbell County, but I'm not sure which way it's pronounced. But like you'll see that this is the county down here. I believe this is Amelia County over here. But you'll see that that'll change the That's a very small county anyways. Oh, no, that's Amelia Courthouse. I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, my point is, that must be wrong. Anyway, my point is a lot of the times, it'll change the search volume metrics by adding that broader county. You see that? So, it just depends on the actual project, but let me just remove Campbell County and we'll just go with Lynchburg in this case. All right. So once I've localized my search, guys, then again, I like to search by average or sort by average monthly searches. And then right there is my volume. So what I do is I like to create, what I do is I total them all up in groups. You can see the different groups right here. And guys, again, there's a post about this in the main Viper Tools group. But what I do is I do a general keyword group. Then I do a near me keyword group. And then I do a what I call a geo keyword group, right? So those are keywords with the geographic modifiers. And that's it, right? So that's what I do. What I do is I total up the total monthly search volume, or the average monthly search volume for each one of these keywords. So in this case, let's just do, just so we got this uniform for what I'm doing today. There we go. It's like it meant to do that. I would go right here and I would say, okay, tree service has got 40, right? So I'm going to say, okay, this has got 40. Oops. Then tree removal is 10. Tree trimming is 10. So I would add 10 and 10, right? You guys get this? And then I would do the keywords with the service modifier right there. Okay, so then these would be tree removal services 10, tree trimming services 10. Okay, so what do I have here? I've got 40, 10, 10, 10, and 10. So that'd be 80, right? So that'd be 80 searches per month is the average monthly search volume for that first keyword set. So I would say general, total, 80 per month, right? And then what I do is once it's ranked is I would, once it's in the 3-pack or at least right outside of the 3-pack, then I would eventually get to the point where I'm doing about 35%. So I would do times or 30 to 35%. So I do either times 0 or 0.3 or 0.35. And then that would equal whatever that equals. So 30% of 80 would be 24, right? So 35% would be what, 28, something like that. Yeah. So it would be 24 to 28 searches per month, right? So that would be search and clicks per month. You guys understand that? Okay. And then I would just do the same thing for the near me. So I would total those up and then I would total up the ones with the location modifiers. You can only do 3 at a time. So, 5 keywords at a time with search and click. You guys know that. So I would probably eliminate those and just run with these as my geo group. Does that make sense? And then this also allows me additional 2 spots for each one of these campaigns. So I set up 3 separate campaigns for every asset, right? I set up a general, near me, and a geo. And what I'm saying is in the near me and in the geo, in the geo groups, I often have these 2 slots available that I can squeeze in brand searches. Does that make sense? So that I can basically cover all of my keyword search and clicks plus my navigational or brand search queries with those 3 campaigns. Right? Does that make sense? Hopefully you guys understand that. But that's all I do. It's very, very simple. Now, that's where I was saying, if it's a new site though, guys, or poorly ranked GMB, you want to complete all the, oh, by the way, Michael, this is free. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to share this with your group. Guys, if you have not already got my GMB process checklist, go do it. All you have to do is opt in to get it. It's 100% free. But this is like, seriously, everything that I do to rank a GMB, even in really competitive areas, is listed in the GMB process checklist, which you guys, again, I just gave you the access to it. All you got to do is opt in, and on the thank you page, there's a button. It'll take you over to the Process Street process doc, which, hold on, I'm just pause the video so I can pull it open. I'm going to show it to you real quick.
Yeah, no, that's good, Bradley. Dude, whatever helps out the guys, man.
Okay, cool. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. And most of you have probably already seen this, but if you haven't, you can get it. And this is, again, guys, this is like what I've worked on for months, and it works every time. I have not had one GMB that I have not been able to get into the 3-pack by doing this process. So let me start share again. Okay, so here you go. Here's the GMB checklist. It's the GMB process checklist. It's in Process Street. You guys can sign up for a free account, and I think you can run up to 5 checklists off of this template. And so what I do is I go in and then I have a paid account, which, you know, again, it's up to you guys whether you want to do that or not. But if you go in and click run, and then you would title it after, so I'm just going to say, you know, ViperTools demo. But what I do is I always title it after the location itself and then click run workflow. And once I do that, it's going to create an actual checklist from that template that I can now go on down the line and just start checking these boxes off as I complete the steps. So the first 3 modules are, well, the first 2 modules are about on-page optimization for GMB. The GMB post silos is, I kind of consider that on page anyways, but the first 3 modules should be completed 100%. The way that I do everything. If it's an uber competitive location, like I'm in, you know, even competitive industries, certain locations aren't going to be very competitive, and likewise, sometimes even non-competitive industries, certain locations will be competitive, right? So what I'm saying is, a lot of the times you don't have to do 100% of this whole process to get results unless you're in an uber competitive area. There have been a couple of occasions over the last 6 months or so that I've had to apply absolutely everything to get results, to get into the 3-pack and that's, again, generally for much more competitive stuff. What I'm saying is modules 1, 2, and 3 should be completed at 100%, no matter which project you're on or how competitive it is, right? Link building, this is where it starts in tier 1 and tier 2 link building. That's where you don't have to apply everything. You'll start to see movement by just starting to apply what's taught here in link building tier 1 and tier 2. And typically what I do is I start with link building tier, you know, the tier 1 links, obviously you start there. And I start building these out just as it's listed here in the checklist. And then once, as the tier 1 links are placed or completed, then I start building tier 2 links to those tier 1 assets where my links have been placed, right? And what happens is you'll start to see movement, especially when you are running CT traffic, you know, and you're manipulating click-through rate, either through ViperTools or ads or both, right? Because again, like I said, especially when you start building out tier 1 assets and then you start running traffic through those tier 1 assets to your target site, your target assets, which would be location landing page, GMB website, and the map, the GMB map. Specifically, I talk about the CID map URL here because that's the only place you can push link equity into a Google map, either the CID map URL or the long ugly URL. Which is just the unfurled CID map URL, if that makes sense. If you guys ever try to build links to the share URL in either Google Posts from google.com or GMB posts in Maps, it's going to give you, even for the same post, it'll give you 2 different short URLs for that same post, share URLs. And those are not good for link building. I mean, they are, don't get me wrong. They're good for link building because everyone else that ever shares a GMB post URL is going to use the share URL. The only people that are going to link, build links to like an inner page of a GMB website for a GMB post. And I'm talking about this because it's likewise for the map as well. The map share URL is the same. There's multiple 302 redirects. And so the only people that ever build links to the CID map URL are SEOs, right? No one else does that. Bloggers don't do that. Civilians or lay people, right? Laymen, they don't do that. It's only SEOs that build links to the CID map URL. So it makes sense to go into, again, let's just jump back over here and we'll, let's just see if this still pulls a map. It should right here. Okay. So if I were to go in here and pull this map share URL, guys, this right here is got multiple 302 redirects in it. So you can't push link equity with that URL, right? By building links to that. But think about it. If you want a natural looking link profile to your Google map, you want to build links to the share URL because everyone else that would ever share your map are going to share the share URL, not the CID map URL. Does that make sense? So if you're going to be building links, which I hope you are, but look at that. See, there's 3 302 redirects in that. And the same goes for any GMB posts, right? So again, this is a GMB post. If I grab the share URL from Maps, you can see the share URL is there. Let me open up a notepad file. And this would be the GMB post URL from inside, the share URL from inside of Maps. Well, if we go back to Google search, if we can do that, let's try that one more time. If we go back here and take that same, I don't know if that's the same one or not, but if we click in there and grab the share URL button, that must be an offer or something. Let's try this. That's different too. See, I'm not looking at one of my, that's interesting. Maybe we haven't done any posts in a while. Oh, here we go. Sorry. That's interesting. Products. See, I didn't set that up. Somebody else did that on my team. That confused me for a minute. Those are products, not posts. So down here, excuse me. If I open this up and I go to the share URL here, you see that's even a different URL. It's the same post, but a different URL. And the point I'm trying to make here, guys, is if we go take a look at any of these share URLs, no matter where you get it from Google, a share URL is going to go through multiple 302 redirects, which means you kill any link equity at the first 302 redirect. You see that? So again, it does make sense to build links to these guys. If you're doing press releases, occasionally build a press release that links using the share URL to your map or to a GMB post, right? Because that's a more natural looking link profile. You're not going to push any SEO link equity into it, but again, it makes sense to do that. And by the way, having a natural looking link profile does matter, right? It does matter. All right. So getting back to what I was saying was if you start building out your tier 1 assets and then you start powering up those tier 1 assets by building tier 2 links to them, and then you're sending traffic through them as well, then you don't have to go through this entire list to build up all these assets with entity tune content on all of them to start getting results. You'll start seeing movements, considerable movement when you get to this point. And then you can rank. And what happens is you end up, and by the way, you can just check them off as you're going, right? That's why I love this checklist, because you can leave at any time. And when you come back to the project, you know exactly what still needs to be done. There's no guesswork, right? I did this specifically for myself first, guys, because I was, as the process continued to develop and I started, finding more and more stuff that worked and I was added into the process, it was all up here. And it was real easy for me to start, forget to do stuff, right? And it was not, because I was trying to take shortcuts, I just forgot to do it, or I thought it was done and it wasn't done. So I developed a checklist first for me. And then I was like, okay, you know what? This is a real good opportunity to use for training and to share with our members and our audience and such, because if it's valuable for me, it'll be valuable for others. But it's great because, like I said, you start getting results through here, and then as needed, you will have all of the other stuff that has not been completed available to you, right? So you'll have stuff in reserve to either maintain rankings or to give it a push if it starts to slip anytime you need it. Okay. Michael, is that why you recommend silo stacking course CTR to share links? Because it looks more natural. I don't know, Michael, if you're available to, is that something you teach, using the share URL specifically because it's more natural?
Yeah. Because, the CID is more of a machine type of URL, whereas the share looks a lot more natural, like a person would go in and click on share and then share that. That's definitely the natural way of doing it.
Yeah. And I agree. I think you should have both. Everything that I'm teaching in this checklist is all about pushing power, right? So but again, that's why whenever I teach this, I always point that out, that these URLs should also be, you should build links to these. If you're building links to the CID map URL, also build some links to the share URLs.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So getting back to this. All right. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Were you going to say something else, Michael?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the GMB process, again, guys, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I recommend, taking the time, go through it. I've used that on over 20 assets now that I've been able to get into the 3-pack. And I mentioned this last week, but for a while there, I was at my pitch, my unique selling proposition to tree contractors was actually like, hey, I guarantee that I'll get your primary keyword into the Maps 3-pack across a minimum of a 25 square mile area, which is a 5x5 GeoGrid. I still use BrightLocal. I know Michael's got search grids on Viper Tools, but I just, my entire business has been built around using BrightLocal reports. So I use the BrightLocal local search grids. And so they have a 5x5 grid with one, and I start with 1 mile spacing. So it comes out to be, 5x5 or 25 points, 25 square mile area. And a lot of the contractors that I pitch to are, they're at 21 plus, or they're, or they're not in the 3-pack. Let's put it that way. At least anywhere outside of where they're physically located, and like 1 mile around where they're located, they might be in the 3-pack, but outside of that, they're not. And so my pitch had been for a long time, for several months this year. I will get you into the Maps 3-pack for your primary keyword within a minimum of a 25 square mile area within 90 days, or else I'll refund your money. And there was a couple of more competitive areas that I almost had to refund the money. and I was able to, at the last minute, by doing some real heavy Google Ads traffic and things like that, I was able to push them into the 3-pack, and I was able to not have to pay out on the guarantee. But I have since switched my USP. My guarantee now is I will get you ranked into the Maps 3-pack across a minimum of a 25 square mile area for your primary keyword within 4 months, or I'll work on your GMB asset until for free until it does. That way I'm not refunding the money because I spend a lot of their money up front on links and outsourcing and stuff like that to get them results. And so I really don't start to realize my profit on it until usually around month 3 or month 4 anyways. A little bit of profit maybe, but not much. And then around month 3 or month 4, it goes heavy profit, right? Like I get a lot of because maintaining it's a lot easier than getting it ranked. I'm sure you all know that. So again, I changed it to, I'll get you into the 3-pack for a minimum of a 25 square mile area for your primary keyword within 4 months, or else I'll continue working on it for free until it does. And so fortunately I have not had to refund anybody, but it came close. So even in competitive areas though, applying the same process strategy here, guys, I was able to get within 90 days. And this is, again, for over 20 assets now, I've done this every time I've been able to get results. So it works really, really well. So coming back to this, like I said, when it comes to a new or poorly ranked GMB, guys, start with brand searches always. Like this should be as a part of, even if you're already ranked, guys, you should always have brand searches running, because it signals to Google that people are searching for your company or that location or whatever by name. And it's a huge, huge signal. So that would be, if the only thing I could do was one thing with Viper Tools, it would be this right here. Okay. So start with that, with new or poorly ranked. And then as your search volume starts to, your maps positioning starts to improve, then you can start to do search and click, keyword search and click, as well as, and start low. Go back to the same kind of thing that I was sharing here, guys, right? With my my formula, but start with like 5% or 10% of the overall traffic. And as it starts to get closer to the 3-pack for those keywords, then you can start pushing, increasing it, increase it 5% each week, or whenever you start to see movement, you can go back and cancel the campaign or clone the campaign. And then, edit it slightly to increase the volume a little bit, and then start the campaign again. Does that make sense? So until a maximum of 30-35%. That's the kind of resting point that I set my search and click traffic to, is 30-35%. Like I said, times 0.3 or 0.35, either one of those, my average monthly search volume totaled for each one of those keyword groups. All right. And that's how I do it every time. And again, I use the Traffic Viper more than the GMB Viper. Just so you guys know. I mean, I still use the GMB Viper, but I do a lot of stuff with the Traffic Viper because I do a lot of tiered traffic campaigns where I'm sending clicks through a couple properties at a time. And I find that I get a lot of really good, not that I don't get good results with the GMB Viper, but I tend to do more Traffic Viper campaigns than GMB Viper campaigns, is what I'm saying. All right. But by the way, you can use the same sort of method on both the Traffic Viper and the GMB Viper. What I would recommend if you're going to do that though, is, that you don't have to split it in half, because I actually, I've tested with the full amount of search and click volume, both in Traffic Viper as well as in GMB Viper, but I think that can look a little bit suspicious. So something that I like to do is, if I'm going to be running both Traffic Viper and GMB Viper, is I like to go a little bit more aggressive. So I might run a separate brand search campaign in GMB Viper specifically, with variations of these types of keywords. And then I'll go a little bit heavier on traffic in the GMB Viper that way, when I'm doing kind of brand stuff. And I think those are great signals too, because remember, it's going to search through and click through on knowledge panel stuff, as well as maps and everything else, right? So, okay, guys, any questions on that specifically before I move on to the next part? Because I want to talk about search queries, and I also want to talk about manipulating URLs a bit. And we're going to talk about the proximity push campaign, which I'm not going to give you guys the process training for that because again, it's strictly for our Semantic Mastery Mastermind members. I will talk about the method here today because Michael already told me that this will not be shared outside of the Strategic Platinum Mastermind, his platinum group. So I will share the strategy, but I cannot share this actual process, the workflow and process street for this outside of our mastermind. And that's just because that's what I said I would do. So.
No, that's totally understandable. What I thought would do is just hold off on the questions until the end, so you can go through everything and then we can address the questions if that's easier for you.
Yeah, I do see one here that I will answer for Adrian. He says, based on what Bradley said, should we be using CID in the Tumblr description versus share? Oh, I thought you were, he must be asking you, Michael. I was going to say, it depends on what you're doing, guys. Remember, if, coming back to here, if we look at, this is kind of what I do, guys. Like I treat my location landing page, the money site, and the GMB website and the CID map URL kind of all as money sites now. Like I understand GMB website and the GMB map are really tier 1 assets if you have a self-hosted money site. Well, what if you don't have a self-hosted money site, which a lot of my clients anymore don't because they don't care. And I realized, like, why am I always pushing a website on a client if they don't care, if they have a fucking website? Sorry. But honestly, you get the GMB website and most tree contractors really don't care whether they have a website or not. All they want is the leads. So I stopped always, not all projects have location landing pages now or self-hosted websites. A lot of my projects now are just GMB assets. So if that's the case, it's these two are your money sites. Does that make sense? So even though, and if you do have a self-hosted landing page or website essentially associated with your project, that is really the epicenter, right? Ground zero, that's your money site. And then all your GMB assets are technically they're tier 1 assets. But I try to treat all 3 of these the same. And it's specifically because I started testing a method that I learned for local link building. I've said this before too, but for years, guys, I didn't care about organic rankings at all. Because in the tree service industry, and I've been working with tree contractors since 2012. So I've got a lot of data, a lot of experience working with tree contractors, generating leads for tree contractors. And I've done every way you can generate leads with Google. I've done it for tree contractors, Google ads, maps, obviously organic ranking, YouTube ads. I've done it that way as well. And out of everywhere, by far, hands down, the vast majority of leads in the tune of 75 to 80% of every lead that I've ever been able to generate for tree service contractors, which is in the thousands, if not tens of thousands over the years, has been about 75 to 80% of them have been through maps, right? And so even though I run Google ads for some clients and I've run Google ads for some of my own lead gen stuff, to generate leads for tree service contractors, like that really only accounts for about 5% of the leads, believe it or not. And that's probably because most people recognize that. Now, I don't do any Google guaranteed ads. I've never done that at all. So I don't have any data on that. But from my own internal data, only about 5% of the leads have been generated through ads and about 75% through maps, the 3-pack. And then the remaining, 15 to 25% of come through the organic section. And so because it was such a small part of the leads generated, a small number of leads, a small percentage of the total leads that I've generated over the years, sometime around probably 2016 or 17, I just said, I'm not going to do organic ranking anymore. I just don't care. So all I did was maps ranking for years. And it wasn't until June this year where I had dozens, like over 30 GMB assets. They didn't get suspended, but they got hit in the middle of June. There was an update of some sort that I think was targeting GMBs that weren't valid business locations. Fortunately, I didn't have a single one suspended. No kidding. But I had over 30 GMBs that were about 80% of them were in the top, in the maps 3-pack. And out of those 30 plus GMBs that got hit, and they all dropped to about an average of 15, an average position of 15, which, I mean, it killed my lead generation overnight. It was all tree service stuff. And like literally in the course of a week, I went from making, I was actually prospecting for more lead buyers, more tree service contractors to buy leads because my lead gen assets were producing so many leads. My existing lead buyers couldn't keep up with it. So a lot of calls were not being answered at all. Well, all my calls get answered because they go to an answering service. I run all my lead gen assets to an answering service, but but a lot of those calls the leads weren't being followed up with because my tree contractors were just overwhelmed with work. And this was in the beginning of June. By mid-June, like everything just dropped overnight. It took about a week, but everything dropped. And I had over 30 assets that were on average position of 15. It ranged anywhere between 10 and 20. And so at that time I was like, well, shit, I've got to get I lost a lot of revenue overnight. And so I started scrambling to start figuring out what I needed to do to get the GMBs to start ranking again, right? To recover them. So at that time, that's when I made the decision, you know what, had I also been concerned with organic rankings throughout all these years, I would have had that as a fallback. And I didn't, because most of my GMB stuff, I could rank in the 3-pack, but if it had a location landing page associated with it, I didn't care if it was on page 4. I really didn't care. But then I said, okay, I've really got to get back into the business of doing organic stuff too. So I tell you that because it was painful during the time when this all happened in June, but I look at it as a blessing in disguise. Now, Napoleon Hill always says, to every adversity, there's a seed of equal or greater benefit. And to me, looking back now in hindsight, I see that it was a blessing to have all those GMBs tanked the way they did, because first of all, it forced me to learn to develop this checklist that you're looking at here, right? And what was interesting is because I had over 30 GMBs that I could test on, what I started doing was testing different methods or tactics on different assets. So in isolation, I would test one specific thing on one location, and I would push on it hard with that one method, and I would see how much movement, if it would move at all, and if it was movement, was it positive? And what I started to do was over the course of a few months, I started being able to identify specific tactics that move the needle the most positively. And then I started combining them. And that's where this checklist was developed from, was just from my own internal testing across my own assets that were hit. And I've recovered most of those assets now, not all of them, but most of them have been recovered. Like I said, I've applied this same checklist to over 20 assets now, but several of those are also client assets because I brought on new clients during this time and everything else. So at least a dozen or so of my own assets have been, recovered or ranked again that were tanked, that had got hit in June, just applying this method. So that was benefit number one. Number two was I realized at that time that I needed to also start learning, brushing up on organic SEO tactics again, so that I could get good at that as well. And so during that process, because I had just completely abandoned that, I started looking around and we do our own stuff at Semantic Mastery, which includes the SEO Shield and all that other kind of stuff. But one thing that we have taught over the years was don't ever do any link building directly to your money site other than through your tier 1 assets, right? And that still is, I still mostly follow that advice. I've done some testing over the last couple of months now with doing direct PBN links to money site. But well-placed tier PBN, well-built PBN links to the money site. But I've since even stopped doing that because I've been able to, through my own testing again, determine that I can actually build all of my tier 1 links to my money site, especially with Web 2.0 sites, stuff that I have 100% control over. I'm still nervous about buying PBN links to my money sites because I don't have control over those links, right? Even if they're built well and everything else, I have no control over those links once they're placed. And I don't like that. So even though I tested with that and I've been able to get some results, what I'm really going to get at here, guys, is the method itself. It's not really the links that matter, except that, like I said, I've within the last 3 or 4 weeks now, I've stopped buying, and I only did it for a handful. I've tested with, a few dozen PBN links on a few different assets. But I've been able to get results, but I don't like that because it always makes me nervous. And for years now, since 2015, when RYS Academy, which is where Google Drive Stacks were born from, for real, was born out of RYS Academy from Semantic Mastery in 2015. And so, we've taught to build the SEO Shield, which is the syndication network, the Drive Stack, G Site, the ID page, Press Advantage organization page. All of those become your tier 1 entity assets, which creates or makes up what was termed, once Rob Beal got involved, he called it the SEO Shield. And that's because it creates a shield, like an SEO firewall, around your money site. And you can do all the external link building you want to those tier 1 assets, and none of those links ever touch your money site, because all that link equity filters through mainly Google assets or high authority assets like Web2, syndication network properties, those kind of things. And it basically, we always called it link laundering. It launders the link juice and cleans it of any potential negative effect to where all you're getting is pure power, right? And so again, all of that is to say that I started testing with some of the PBN links and stuff direct to my money site. And it was more about getting my anchor text ratios right, which is what I'm getting to in just a moment. But I realized that once I proved that worked, which is a Matt Diggity method for your tier one links to your money asset. It's about going and getting the average anchor text ratios by category type, by anchor text category. And just meeting that and kind of getting your anchor text ratios close to whatever your top ranked competitors have their anchor text ratios are. It's not about the number of links. It's about your anchor text ratios. And so I started testing all of that, which is, again, I learned this from Matt Diggity. It's free. It's on his YouTube channel. It's also on his blog. He even has like a link building workbook template. It's an Excel spreadsheet that you can download. I didn't like that at all, but I learned this technique from him and I started testing it. Because again, as I said, we had always taught, like, just build links. You can smash your tier one entity assets with, kitchen sink spam links if you want, and it will ultimately power up your money asset because it, again, it link launders, it filters all that stuff out, and all you're doing is eventually just pushing power into it. But here's why I didn't want to just do spam links, guys, which is what we had always taught, is because spam links, even tiered spam link campaigns, which is what we recommend. Our link builder inside of our store, Dedia, he's a freaking ninja. He's the best spam link builder I've ever met. And he does, contextual web 2.0 links. And he recommends doing 2 tiers of contempt, which we always suggested, like, we wouldn't even sell link building packages that would go directly to your money asset. It would only be to your tier one entity assets, right? They're at the beginning, there's, to start with, all right out of the gate, they're tier 2 link packages that you're buying. And you can buy tier 2 link packages from our store, which used to be called MGYB. Anyway, Marco and Rob have split from Semantic Mastery, guys. They're now on their own. So they took over the store and everything else. So Semantic Mastery is just now Adam, Chris, and I. But anyway, so we're not running a store at all anymore. But anyway, the link building gigs that we had at MGYB, we would buy, that we would recommend tiered link building campaigns. So it would be contextual web 2.0s as the tier 2 links to your tier 1 assets. And then Dedia always recommended doing a second layer of contextual web 2.0 links to your first layer, right? And then GSA spam behind that, which is basically kitchen sink spam behind that. So if you did a 3-tiered campaign, that would actually be all the way out to tier 5 in links. And that's where GSA would be at tier 5, if you all understand that. That all works. There's no doubt. That's all we've done for years. But why I didn't like that is throughout all this testing that I was doing was, when you're doing spam links like that, first of all, it takes weeks, if not months, for you to start to see results from a spam link campaign. Because it takes forever for any of them to get crawled, yet alone indexed. Many of them will never index, but they get crawled, especially if you run them through multiple indexers. They'll at least get crawled so Google knows they're there. But second of all, because it's tiered and everything else, it takes months. And I wanted to test organic methods for ranking organically with higher powered PBN links because they produce a result a lot faster, right? So that's when I started testing with different PBN link providers. I've bought links from rankclub.io. I've also been more recently buying a lot of stuff from Legit. Legit's got a lot of really good PBN providers. So you can buy a lot of high powered links on Legit, things like that. And so I started testing with that. But once I figured out like that Matt Diggity's method, which we'll cover in just a moment, works, it works for local ranking stuff. I realized, like, okay, now I can start, I can accomplish what I need to do to manipulate anchor text ratios with Web 2s that I have 100% control over. So I can create branded assets out there on all these different sites. And guys, as I mentioned in the checklist here, you'll see, I talk about, let me uncheck these. First, the ID as part of the SEO Shield. Again, I'm not here to pitch our services or anything else. It's just what I do. I'm talking about what I do. The ID page is part of the SEO Shield. And that's one of your best link targets, guys, in case you weren't aware of that. If you don't know what an ID page is, if you've ever done local business schema, there's an add ID field in the structured data, the JSON-LD code for local business schema. And way back in February of 2019, I was doing some research on what the hell is an add ID? Like, what does that mean? And I found out that it means it's somewhere that you reference. It's a URI, Universal Resource Indicator or whatever, where you're supposed to reference all the data about the brand, right? And it's not supposed to change. It's supposed to be like, okay, this ad ID is like, it's telling the Google bot, like, okay, here's all the entity information about this brand. And that's not supposed to change much. Now, it doesn't mean you can't edit the page or whatever. I'm just letting you know that, like, that's what I found out. And so when I read that, which is way back in February of 2019, I was like, okay, how can we manipulate this ID field to our advantage? And so I created what was called, at the time, it was called the, I called it the iframe loop or something like that. It was in the Syndication Academy training, February 2019. In fact, if anybody here is in Syndication Academy, you can go back, look at the archives for February 2019, and that's where I did the first training on this. But what I do is go to Amazon S3 and host an HTML page. It's just a simple HTML file, but we put JSON-LD structured data there and in all of the assets. In fact, let me pause the screen for 1 minute. I'll show you an example of one of those just so you guys have it. The ID page is very, very important because you can not only list all of the entity information, but you can use that. It's an Amazon S3 bucket, HTML page, so it's loads fast and everything else. It's not really for public consumption. It's an SEO thing, right? But you can do what's called the iframe stacks there, guys. And if you don't know this, iframes act as bi-directional do-follow links, in case you weren't aware of that. Hold on, I'm trying to find. Let's look at. I don't know if that one's built out yet. Hold on a minute, guys. Yeah, that's not one. Let's look at this one. Okay. So here's an example of an ID page. So you get the, so it's just, like I said, simple file, guys. I got my no follow highlighter Chrome extension on. That's why you see some of these are no followed. I'll explain this in a minute. But this is just an iframe loop, an iframe stack on an HTML page. It's an S3 bucket. You see it up there? Okay. So you're siphoning some juice, some authority from Amazon to begin with, because it's on the Amazon domain. Okay. But then as you see, all it is, guys, is as I was talking about here, right? All I want to do, and I'm sorry, I haven't got to the part about anchor text ratios. We'll get to that in just a moment. Because there's some workbooks in here, guys, that you have access to. You can just click make a copy. There's a GMB post workbook where you can make a copy. Looks like this. This is how I keep track of. By the way, make a copy of all this stuff into your drive, guys, and then keep the copy as a template and make copies of that before you start editing it, so that you always have a blank template version in your drive account. Okay. But here's like an example of a GMB post workbook where I keep track of all my GMB post silos and the modified map URLs, which we'll get to that. It's proximity push stuff that I was talking about. I'll get to that in a bit. Also, let me show you real quick the link building workbook as well. And there's an example in here. What I like to do on this one, guys, is I make I duplicate the sheet. So by the way, this is the template. So what I would do is make a copy. Okay, I'll just leave it right there. I would title it after the project, obviously, because you don't want to edit the template, guys, because then you won't have a template. So now that I've got a copy, I can get rid of the template there. I'm just going to put actually demo in there. Okay. And what I do is this has all been built out with, just some simple average formulas here. All you got to do is just make a copy. I would leave this first sheet as a data template and then just click the drop down arrow and then say duplicate. And then you would title that. I like to rename it after whatever the keyword is that I'm going to track for organic rankings. Okay. And so that's what I would do. I would just name this, whatever. I'm just going to say demo keyword for this. Okay. But then I've got an example here that I can share with you guys. And again, this is Matt Diggity's method, but I started to test with this for organic rankings for local business sites. And it started to work. And so that's where, and again, I'll come back to this in a minute, guys, because, we're going to talk a lot more about link building anyways, both tier 1 and tier 2. But I just wanted to get to where I'm at with this, talking about my anchor text ratios and everything. Okay. And links, right? So what I was saying was, I wanted to be able to manipulate my anchor text ratios to get it right, which is the tier 1 link building method that, again, that spreadsheet was made for. It was just a way to track everything and to get my ratios, my average ratios for each anchor text category. And so I was using tier one links from like rentclub.io and also some other PBN providers. For a while there, for several months, I was on Dory Friends SEO Nitro Network. Great network, except it was a lot of work going into preparing content. And I found myself spending 12 to 14 hours per month preparing content to submit to the network for link building. And it was way too time consuming. So I stopped. I ended up canceling that service. It worked well, but I canceled it just because I didn't have the bandwidth for that. So I like going to PBN providers where I just provide them the URL and the keyword and they do it. They do the rest. And so that's what I've switched to now. And I was doing, like I said, tier one PBN links direct to the money site to get my anchor text ratios right. But once I determined and I proved that this Matt Diggity's method works for local business stuff, I said, okay, I'm going to eliminate that because I want to do what we've always taught, which I feel most comfortable with, by the way, which is not building direct links to your location landing page or self-hosted site other than from assets that I have 100% control over. So that's where we're at with this. So the SEO Shield, which includes a syndication network, right? So all the properties, branded network properties. It includes the GStack or Drive Stack, Google Drive Stack with all the primary folder and then all the files and the Google site. And in the ID page and in the Press Advantage organization page, you guys should all be familiar with Press Advantage. It's a great service. By the way, I'm also testing Lane Houck's Signal Genesis, and that looks really promising as well. And he's done a lot of really cool things over there. I know he's part of your group, Michael, but Lane Houck's Signal Genesis has got a lot of really cool features in it too. So I'm actually testing with that right now too. But anyways, so all of those are tier one entity assets, right? So we've got the ID page, we got the G site landing page. If you have a Google site as part of your Drive Stack, it's going to be mirrored. We always talk at Semantic Mastery about theme mirroring. That's a concept I learned from Network Empire way back in like 2013-ish. They called it theme mirroring, and it's brilliant. And it works like even today, right? 8 years later, it still works today. So that is whatever the architecture is of your or structure of your self-hosted site. So most everybody's going to have some sort of silo architecture built into their site. Well, you mirror that exact same structure in your GMB. You can do that with the GMB website and GMB posts. Yes, you can't create categories and everything else, but you can still do it with GMB posts. We'll talk about that when we get to in just a few minutes. Okay. But you can structure the same you mirror the same structure from your money site silo architecture into your GMB website and into your Drive Stack with your G site, right? And so when I say that, you're going to get a branded entity folder, right? So your branded stack, which is what all Drive Stacks should be built around the brand name only starting off. The way that I do it is brand name only. We used to talk about associating brand name plus whatever your most prominent keyword should be, but I don't like to do that anymore because I like to do my brand stack is specifically for just the brand name. That's it. I'm not optimizing for a keyword. I'm just optimizing for the brand. And then I do RYS expansions or what's called location shields for each location or an RYS expansion for each silo, if that makes sense. And then what that does is it creates subfolders of your main entity folder inside of Drive. And then it duplicates all the files within that folder, but then they go in and optimize it for the specific silo. So everything is like a 1-to-1 ratio. You have however many silos you have in your money site, you have that as subfolders in your Drive Stack. You have that as inner pages on your G site. So you mirror the same structure on your G site. Then you mirror the same structure with press releases, right? You mirror the same structure with YouTube silos if you're doing YouTube stuff. Right? You mirror everything together. And we talk about that, in fact, in the GMB post silo training, right here, I talk about very specifically, this is called a GMB push silo, and this is called a GMB mirror silo, right? So you can mirror. So every time you do supporting article posts in your blog, your money site to power up your landing page for that silo, which is what you're probably trying to rank, not necessarily the blog post, although there is something to be said for ranking blog posts too. Whatever your structure is, your internal linking structure for posts on a blog to support a silo, you mirror that with GMB post silos, right? The same sort of structure, the same interlinking and everything else. And then you can power up your GMB post silo, which would link to your money site blog posts. And you can hammer the shit out of those with links and embeds and links, right? And power them up. And everything filters through the Google My Business site, the GMB website, over to your money site eventually, but through the kind of link launderers through Google Assets, right? So again, what I was saying was, getting back to this, was I could do all of these things here, build out and manipulate my anchor text ratios through all branded assets that I have 100% control over. ID page, G site landing page, press advantage organization, syndication network properties. So that's the main profile URLs. Typically all I'm talking about, I know there's a bunch of properties in the syndication network. There's like 20 of them ish. But I mainly focus on just the main 3 blog properties. Now, part of an ongoing project is to constantly be increasing, expanding your entity footprint by getting listed on more like Web 2.0 sites and everything else, not necessarily to syndicate content to them, but just having a presence and an interlinking where possible, which is one of the places an ID page is very valuable. We'll get back to that. But syndication network properties, again, I'm mainly talking about the Tumblr, Blogger, and WordPress. Those are the 3 main blog accounts associated with the syndication network property. So I lump all syndication network properties together in kind of like one tier 1 asset here, although they are separate assets, right? The RYSG sheet. So if you get a drive stack, it's going to have 2 different sheets associated with it. It's going to have one that's going to be the link sheet, and it's going to have one that is a keyword sheet, which is just the same links sheet, but with the links hyperlinked to the cell with anchor text, the keywords that you provide with your order. So I like to use that sheet as a specific tier 1 entity asset, okay? Because I can go in there and add additional links and then, hyperlink that cell to the keyword using the keyword that I want and all that sort of stuff. By the way, somebody says, oh, well, Google Drive files, they don't rank anymore and you can't make those public. Bullshit. You can make them public and they do rank still. I've got RYSG sheets ranked for brand searches, yes, but they do rank. There's no question they rank, okay? Sometimes it takes forever for them to index, and you have to power them up in order for them to index and rank. And I have not actually ranked one for a keyword, not that I really haven't tried, but for brand searches, you will often see on the projects that I work on an RYSG sheet ranked in the top 2 pages somewhere, because I do build links to them, right? Does that make sense? 301 redirects. I do a lot of 301 redirect stuff for the CID map and for the GMB website. It's a way that I can squeeze keyword relevance in there, as well as I was talking about at the very top of this webinar. I like to use redirect URLs for Viper, when I'm doing CT spam stuff, so that I can see the clicks, right? I can track click activity on the links. So I just set up, because my own agency, I deal with tree contractors. My brand name for that agency is Tree Care HQ. So I set up a tchq.link domain that I use, and I just put Pretty Links Pro in there, and I use that as my own branded redirect URL. You guys can do whatever you want. If you have any URL shorteners that you use that have been powered up, you can squeeze some SEO juice from redirects just by the redirect domain being powered up. So over time, I've actually powered mine up, my own tchq.link shortener, because I've built a lot of links to it over the last several months. Excuse me. So I like to use 301 redirects for these mainly. If you're going to be doing a 301 redirect for your location landing page, which there's times that makes sense too. Like I said, just to track click activity from Viper Tools is a good example of that. Just remember, if you're going to be building links directly to your redirects, just be cognizant of that, so that you're not building any sort of spammy links to the redirect that goes to your location landing page. You can build spammy links through redirects to your GMB website and your CID map URL. Because those are Google assets, they can take whatever you can throw at them. All right. But then this specifically here is going into my branded Tumblr property from the syndication network and publishing a separate and unique drafted article, not a syndicated article from the Money Site blog. Because remember, a lot of my projects don't even have blog sites now, right? Money sites. So we do, in that case, we just do GMB posts, and we go in and publish log into the Tumblr. And I have a blogger that creates all my entity tune content now, unless I'm doing it because I don't want to wait for her to do it, which I still do draft a lot of my own content at times. But anyways, I'll go into Tumblr and I'll log in and I'll publish or the blogger will publish a entity tuned piece of content that in there that's separate and unique on that Tumblr blog, right? And then log into WordPress and do another separate post, and then go log into Blogger and do another separate post where I can do embeds. I can do direct links with anchor text to manipulate my anchor text ratios to get close to what we're going to talk about here, right? Does that make sense? And then these 3 over here, guys, those 3 are just 3 that I really like. but you can do any sort of web twos. And I mentioned that down here, I say, or equivalent, right? So it's what's important here that I've learned this over the last several months is that if you treat tier one entity assets as money sites, as far as your content development, you're going to get much, much better results. When I say SEO and tune content, what do I talk about? Use something like Surfer SEO, or what I really like is Outranking. This is one of my favorites now. I actually just canceled my Surfer SEO subscription earlier this week. I'm not kidding, or excuse me, last week, because Outranking is fabulous, guys, for content. It's really, really good. Anyway, all of that said was, if you treat your tier one entity content as money site content, where I mean, it's a lot of work, but the idea here is, and again, I'll demonstrate this when we go in, and I'll show you irrefutable proof that you don't need a lot of links in order to get results. And so if, right here, this is showing these right here, you really don't need separate unique content for, because this is all really developed from existing assets when the build is being done. But these would be 3 separate posts. And then over here would be, I have a third party. I use Marketer Center a lot. I'm testing a few other services right now as well, for just creating additional Web 2.0s to kind of expand that entity footprint. And then once I get my report back from Marketer Center with these other branded Web 2.0s, I like to pick these 3 from there, just because, again, I like the editor. They're do follow links. They're easy. I think that the sites look good. And then I just go in and post separate and unique content on those too, right? So you don't need a lot. I know it seems like a lot of work if you're going to be doing tier one. That's why I said earlier, you don't need to go through and do all of this. I've got several of the 20 plus assets that I've applied this to now and gotten into the 3-pack within 90 days on every one of them. I've got many of those assets where this hasn't been done at all. And only 1 or 2 posts have been done at this level. All this is done because that's automatically built with an SEO shield. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So I start building tier 2 links to these assets when they're completed. And a lot of the times that'll start to push the map into the 3-pack. And then I don't need to do all this other stuff until it's needed, right? Which means if I start to slip, or if I need to maintain rankings, or, maybe once a month, I'll tell my blogger, hey, look, go publish another unique post on, for this location, log into WordPress and publish a post for them. Or go set it up on the company.site, which is actually through ecwid.com. It's like an e-commerce platform, but they give you a really nice looking blog that you can manipulate on company.site. So it's like .company.site, whatever your brand name is, .company.site. So I really like that one. But that's my point, guys, is I don't need to do all this. A lot of the times I get results in lower competition areas. I get results once this is the syndicate, the SEO shield assets have been built, and we start building tier 2 links to those assets, along with, like I said, modules 1, 2, and 3 being 100% complete. Then we start seeing, and then we're adding traffic into this whole thing through Viper Tools and Google Ads. Then I start to rank. And a lot of the times I don't even need to do this until it's needed, right? So with that all said, that's why I said I started testing with some tier 1 PBN links, because I was trying to get results quick and to figure out what worked. And once I figured out what worked, which Matt Diggity's method absolutely works for this, I encourage you guys, and by the way, it's very encouraging when we're going to go look at this now and analyze some of this. I want to prove this to you. It's great to know that, at least in the industry that I'm in, which is tree services, years ago when I used to focus on organic, and now I am again, but I said I went through multiple years there where I just didn't care. But many years ago, around 2014, 2015, when I would also focus on organic stuff, I remember doing backlink analysis, and I've always used Majestic. I've tested all of them, guys. SEMrush, I have a subscription to SEMrush. I use that for other stuff. But I also test at Ahrefs and Moz Pro, and Majestic. And out of all of them, Majestic is still my favorite for backlink analysis. And I like it because Majestic specifically filters out low quality links that are present that other tools will show you, but they really provide no SEO value whatsoever. And I like that because I like Majestic only shows me links that are really producing any like measurable link equity. So I like to use Majestic for that reason. It's like it filters out the noise, and it leaves me to just focus on the links that matter. So again, I'm not trying to convince anybody else of that. I'm just telling you, I like to use Majestic, and Majestic will show you when and we're going to go do this in just a moment live, but you'll see that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I was doing organic stuff, I would go do a backlink analysis using Majestic on competitors, and I would see dozens and dozens, sometimes hundreds, and in rare cases, thousands of links built to the pages that were ranked. And now it's completely the opposite. I mean, it's oftentimes I will see less than, 30 links to any page that's ranked on page one for the keywords that I'm targeting. Less than 30 links. Think about that. And again, using this exact data here, guys, and this was produced, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago is when I actually created this kind of template for you guys. And so these SERPs have probably shifted slightly. I'm sure they have, but this is the average number of links for Tree Service Baltimore, which is a major metropolitan area. So you would think that this would be fairly damn competitive. And you can see the average number of links is 17. How hard is that? Again, if you take a look at this diagram here, guys, you get almost 17 links right here, right? Because remember, you can get multiple links on the ID page, which is what I started to show you, which is here. And you can see I'm manipulating anchor text ratios right here. I no followed everything else. All I left on here was follow links with the anchor text specifically that I want, going to which asset I want. Okay, and sidebar bit 2. Then we've got our iframes, which again, beyond the scope of today's training, because we're supposed to be talking about traffic and GMB ranking stuff. But you guys, iframes, like I said, act as bi-directional do follow links. Okay. In fact, it has its own kind of category of majestic, right? It's called an empty anchor or a frame. And it's actually, iframes count as links, guys. In case you didn't know, iframes count as links. They're considered empty anchors, right? It's just like having an image link, right? So a photo link that's hyperlinked to whatever URL with no anchor text. It's the same sort of thing, right? As far as anchor text, right? It's an empty anchor, but it acts as kind of like a bi-directional follow link, right? And so if you take a look at what this ID page is here, guys, it is nothing but an iframe stack with some, anchor text links as well. Here's my GMB website. This location, yeah, it actually does have a money site attached. Actually, no, this one doesn't at all. That's right. This one, I don't even have a location landing page associated with this. Some of the other projects I do. Anyways, so this is an example of what I was talking about. But on the ID page, this is an iframe GMB website. Then obviously there's NAP listed right there. And I did not hyperlink that for a reason, because it's already hyperlinked up here with the anchor text that I wanted, as well as the iframe here, which, by the way, guys, I'm sure most of you already know this, but let me just go view page source and you can see this. If we scroll down to that first iframe, there's my JSON LD, right? You guys see all that? So again, there's my local business schema. If I copy that and I go look at the structured data schema markup validator, excuse me, and I go look at this, you'll see, and sometimes it doesn't load because it's an iframe loop, which means it's resource heavy because it's got iframes stacked within iframes, and so it causes like a lot of load time. But you can see there's my anchor, or excuse me, my JSON LD local business markup on that. But then below that, in the first, here's all my citations, which, by the way, you can see. You guys that do local, you probably know citations oftentimes don't index. They're hard to index, or they take forever to index, unless you're building links to them, which you can do. And you can send traffic to citations too. I know Mike Marlino, he's in here, and I know that that's one of the tricks he does, because I recently saw one of his posts about that. And he's absolutely right. That works. Sending traffic to and some links to your backlink, your citations will boost them and get them for Google to take notice of them. Here's the thing. Even though a lot of these won't index, the citations won't index, Google crawls them and knows they're there. And how do I know that? Because if you go into Search Console and you go to links and link, external links. So go to Search Console links, external links, or, and then you extract that external link report. All it will do is give you the domains. It won't give you the URLs where the link is placed, but it does give you the domains. And you'll see a lot of those directory sites that you might not be able to find them in the index, but you'll see their domain in your links report from Search Console. So that means Google knows they're there. It's crawled them. It just didn't index them, right? So this is kind of a trick that I've been using to get those citations crawled, is just add them to my ID page and no follow them. And then I hyperlink them with keywords, right? So all I do is I take my keyword list that I use to submit for my SEO Shield orders and stuff like that. And then all I do is just, in this case, because I didn't have a whole lot of citations, actually, I just put them in the sidebar. But more recently, what I've been doing is actually taking a sheet, a Google sheet, just like the RYS keyword sheet that I was talking about right here, right? And I add those citations to a keyword sheet, hyperlink the cell to the keywords as you're seeing here, and then I make it public. And then you can publish the G sheet and you get an embed code. And then you put the embed code in your ID page. So it accomplishes the same thing without having to do it over here in the sidebar, which if you get enough citations, it becomes really, really long. So it's just another way to do it is to embed the G sheet into the ID page with all of your citation URLs, hyperlinked with the keywords that you want to create that association, right? Does that make sense? So again, and then down here, here is the GMB map, obviously. Here is the Press Advantage organization page, which has a GMB map embed in it, which has the GMB website embed all the way down at the bottom. So now isn't this an iframe inside of an iframe, right? You think about that, that this Press Advantage organization page is iframed into this ID page. And then in that is iframed the GMB map, as well as the GMB website. And then down here, this is the YouTube video, David Sprague, rep video. I'm sure you all are familiar. And then down here is the ID page framed into itself. Does that make sense? So if you guys have ever looked at, two mirrors that are, across from each other and you get in the middle and you look down one of them, what do you see? You see that mirror in that mirror image that goes on for infinity. It keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's an iframe loop. It's like a fucking wormhole. It's a tunnel, right? It's like a time warp tunnel. And that's what happens to the bots, right? The bot comes in and it gets stuck in this iframe loop. And there's all this entity information built right into this page, structured data, all the, NAP information. In this case, there's a bunch of no followed, citation URLs, all the main assets that we want Google to take notice of. The bots come in and kind of get stuck in this loop and they just keep recycling themselves, right? They go down this kind of wormhole, right? And it's just constantly feeding that information back to itself. This is very, very powerful. That's why I said this is one of the most powerful parts of the kind of whole entity stack that we do is this ID page. I love these things. Okay.
Yeah, that's genius. And by the way, Bradley, you've now made Merlino's day by naming him.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's so excited, man. He's packing up his bags. He's heading out to Hollywood right now.
No, Mike's a beast, dude. He's killing it right now. I know he is. Michael's killing it right now because I see his posts and I know he's just crushing it. I know he's got a lot of really good things going on, man. It's awesome to see.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's a good guy.
But anyways, guys, yeah, so this is, this is killer. So now let's just jump back over here because I know we're supposed to get to some traffic stuff and I promise we will, but I just want to explain like all the stuff that I'm teaching you guys here. To me, it's so encouraging because like now I have a repeatable process that I know works and it works every time I've applied it, whether it's 100% or as much as it takes to get results, right? So in some cases, it might only be 60% complete and yet I get results. And it's fabulous because it's just a repeatable process. And this was, to me, when I started getting back into doing organic SEO, I had to kind of relearn everything because I had gotten away from it for so many years. And that's why I've started looking at all different kinds of things. And I found Matt Diggity. I was looking for a workbook. That's what I was looking for when I stumbled across his method. I was looking for a link building workbook to be able to keep track of tiered links. And that's how I came across his lesson that was on his blog, and it had an associated YouTube video along with it on what he did for link building. Now, again, I didn't like his workbook at all, like the template that he got. I didn't like it at all, but that's beside the point. It basically introduced me to this method. And I said, man, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let me try it. So this is what we're going to talk about now is I'm going to bring up Majestic. And we're going to kind of just walk through this, guys, because to me, this was super encouraging because like I said, I had thought about for years about, the last time that I had done any sort of organic ranking stuff, tree service contractors and I dealt with a lot of different kinds of clients at the time, mostly contractors, but of all different type trades, of all different trades. And like I said, a lot of times there would be dozens, hundreds, and sometimes thousands of links built to the pages ranked. And so when I thought I was going to get back into, honestly, I was like, well, how am I going to get the results with just the SEO Shield if I'm not building thousands of, dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of links to my money asset? Like, how am I know we can do it because we can push power through the SEO Shield, but anyways, I wanted a way that was easier for me to be able to duplicate, So this is where I came up with it. So always give credit where credit is due. And like I said, Matt Diggity deserves credit for this. Shit, I thought I was typing in the search bar, so forgive me. Try that again. Baltimore, right there. Okay. All right. So we're going to demonstrate this, guys. And here's what I want to talk about. We're comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So any directory sites and the top 10 results don't matter. It doesn't count. Don't even look at them. Seriously. Well, and I'm going to prove it to you in just a moment. But same thing with the SEO analysis. If you're using tools to tune content, such as Surfer SEO, that's the one that's the most common. That's why I often reference that. Although, like I said, I swear to God, I just canceled my subscription last week because Outranking is fabulous. If you guys don't have it, go get it. Outranking is badass. They keep developing it further. And every time, I mean, like, it's crazy. It is developed so much. I bought the lifetime deal, thank God, way back when. But it's a fantastic tool. If you guys are producing content, even in-house, if you got somebody that does it for you, get them trained on Outranking. I'm telling you, you can thank me later. Okay. It's a fantastic tool. Anyway, that said, any one of the SEO analysis tools, content tuning tools, they're going to also, whatever SERPs they bring up for your keyword, make sure you're turning off the directory sites, guys, because if you're trying to analyze your content against those, it's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. Those sites typically have endless scroll. So it's going to show, like, again, for tree service stuff, the average amount of content for a local business type site, which is what I'm competing against, not the directories. Yes, we're competing for them in SERPs. But when you look at their backlink profile and content and all that other kind of stuff, we're not really competing with them because they're, again, like with Yelp, for example, the authority score in Surfer, for example, is 10. It's 9 or 10. Which it's their own proprietary authority. It's not the same as Moz domain authority, but it's probably similar. But what I'm saying is their authority score is 9 or 10. It means they're a very authoritative domain. Just like Angie's List used to be, now it's Angie.com. But that authority hasn't all passed over from the redirects from Angie's List. Home Advisor is another real high authority site. Lawn Starter, which is one that is a big site for tree service and landscaping contractors. It's a directory called Lawn Starter. So I see that all the time in the industry that I work in. All of those, here's Angie, Home Advisor, BBB, that'd be another one. All of those don't really count because a lot of those, when you're looking at SEO tuning tools, they're going to, first of all, a lot of them, like I said, are endless scroll. So in my industry, the average amount of words, number of words for a ranking page for any sort of tree service keyword is typically between 600 to 850 words average. But if you look at like Yelp page, a directory page on Yelp, which would be right here, in the Surfer tool or any one of those tools, it's going to show the average word count is like 3,500. Like, no kidding. So you're not comparing against that, because not only that, but think about tree service is in the name of almost every one of these businesses that, on these pages, right? And so there's going to be the occurrence of frequency of particular keywords are going to be really high on directory sites that aren't going to be on local business sites because that the keywords in the name of the businesses, right? So there's like a number of reasons why you don't want to do that. Same thing goes for backlinks. Most of these pages, guys, if you've ever done any analysis on these pages that are ranking for directory sites for general keywords searches like this, they have little to zero backlinks because they're ranking purely on domain authority and internal links. Speaking of Michael Merlino, I remember seeing one of his, he was showing a screenshot recently in Facebook about Majestic showing trust flow to a URL that had 0 backlinks. And I know what you're doing there, Michael. Majestic does not show internal links. So you can push trust flow internally to a page where it has no external backlinks. And so that's how because again, Majestic does not show internal links. But I thought that was interesting because I saw it was like a 40 trust flow and I was like, damn, like that's a lot with 0 backlinks, external backlinks. That means you were pushing internally all that trust flow to a page. That's impressive, dude, for sure. But so I just wanted to point that out, guys. You'll see that like all of these directory pages, and we're going to prove this right now. Like, let's just take this one, in fact, and you'll see, we go over to Majestic and we'll search this URL. 1 backlink. See that? 1 backlink, guys. And that's Yelp in what, the number 2 position, organic for tree service, Baltimore. So that's just one of several examples, right? I can share with you guys here just to show you. Let's go look at Angie. Now, Angie, Remember, this is a newer domain because they rebranded from Angie's List. So this will be slightly different, but look at this, 2 backlinks. Yes, there's 4 backlinks, guys, but there's only 2 referring domains. So when I talk about backlinks, I talk about referring domains. That's what I mean, okay? Because you can have multiple backlinks from the same domain, and one of them is going to be weighted the heaviest, right? There's going to be one backlink, and you have multiple backlinks from the same domain, especially if it's from the same type, like page and things like that. But even if same domain, one of them is going to be weighted the heaviest. The rest of them are going to be considered kind of like supplemental links. Yes, some link juice does still pass, but one of them is going to be considered the heaviest weighted backlink from that domain, if that makes sense. And by the way, this is a recent development in Majestic. They actually tell that if it says distinct, like for example, if you see and I'm sure we'll see some here in a minute when we start looking at the backlink analysis or profile of some of these local business sites instead of the directory sites, you'll see a plus sign in here that if there's multiple backlinks from the same domain, you'll see a plus sign, and you click the plus sign and it expands, and it'll show all the different links from that domain, and it'll give a kind of a tag for each one of the links, and it'll show like the one that's weighted the heaviest will always be given this distinct tag. So that's why whenever I'm doing backlink analysis, I really don't care about the number of links. What I care about is referring domains. So hopefully you guys understand that. Okay. So anyways, looking at that we'll just do one more Home Advisor. Let's take a look at this. Just to prove this point, beat this dead horse, okay? One more time. So this one has 8 referring domains. So Home Advisor is the outlier here, but are any of these, that's interesting. Angie is matching to Home Advisor. They're linking to Home Advisor. That's kind of interesting, unless somebody was using the Home Advisor landing page as their money site. drnearme.info. You see a ton of these bullshit sites out there that, and especially at least in my industry, it's probably across the board, but in tree service industry, we see a lot of these junk sites out there that create backlinks, and I don't know what the purpose of them is for, but you see that often. So anyways, you guys understand that. So when we're talking about apples to apples, we want to be comparing what we're going to be doing with other local business sites. So if we come back here and let's kind of split screen this if we can. Here. Okay. So at the time that I created this report, let's see, Davie is now number 1 in MD Tree Service for Maryland Tree Service is number 3. Looks like they swapped, because at the time that I created this report, Davie was number 3 and MD Tree Service was number 1. Doesn't really matter if you want to go in and update your link building sheet, every couple of months, fine, go in and update it. I really don't care. It's just whatever it is at the time that I start the link building campaign, that's what I run with. And then, like I said, maybe every few months, if I see anything significantly change, then I'll go back in and maybe reanalyze the SERP for that particular keyword. Does that make sense? So in this sheet, I might have, tree service Baltimore, then I duplicate the sheet again and do tree removal Baltimore, tree trimming Baltimore, for example, right? Because those are my top 3 keywords. So I would have a sheet for each one of those, and I would want to track each keyword. But the most general of keywords would be tree service Baltimore. So as you can see, if we go in here and click, by the way, if you notice, guys, I'm gonna talk about this too. If you're using Majestic, this is important to know. But you see how this is an inner page on the Davie site? Well, Davie's a big tree contractor. They're all up and down the East Coast. They might even be a national. They might go across the country. I know they're all up and down the East Coast. It's a big, big tree company. So this is a location landing page. You guys get that? It's an inner page. It's not the root domain. This is a home page. So that means when I'm analyzing the backlinks here, I don't want to just analyze this URL. I want to analyze the root domain, right? Because all of the root domain links are all resolving to this URL. Does that make sense? Hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. If I take this Davie link here and I go to Majestic, we're going to look at the URL, okay? Because it's a ranking URL, not a ranking homepage. It's a inner page. So this is the domain metrics, the backlink metrics that I'm going to assess or analyze for this page, because it's an inner page. However, you notice this. In fact, I'll just open up another instance and I'll show you. If we go pull this is what I want to demonstrate. And guys, also something else. When you're looking at trust flow metrics too, there's something else you need to be aware of with Majestic. If you use Majestic, is when you're looking at the root domain. Okay, so here's what I want to get at. Okay, this is showing for MD Tree Service for this particular URL. That's what I'm looking at. It's showing 11 backlinks, 11 referring domains. And it's saying, would you like to switch to the entire mdtreeservice.com domain? there are 58 external backlinks. So if I say yes, and I click that, all it's going to do is switch it to root domain. And now this is showing 25 referring domains. Does that make sense? This is how I would actually want to analyze this ranking site, because it was the homepage URL that was ranked, right? In all versions. So www, yes or no, HTTP, HTTPS, you know, all of those variations should all resolve to this root domain. So this is, I actually really do want to look at all the backlink profile to the root domain in this case. In this case, I don't, because this is saying, would you like to look at the entire Davy? This is showing 8 referring domains to this ranking page. But if I were to switch to root domain, what's going to happen? Am I really competing against that? No, I'm competing against this, right? Does that make sense? And then likewise, I'm competing against that URL, if I want to back this up, but because it's a home page, all of the versions or variations of the homepage URL, with or without HTTPS, with or without www, you know what I'm saying? All of those resolve to this same location. So I do want to look at the root. Okay. You guys understand that? All right. So with that said, and then one other thing about trust flow metrics, when you're looking at, by the way, if you're looking at trust flow metrics at the root domain, that's actually like from what I understand, that is like the trust flow of all the pages and everything, like all together. Like if you want to get the specific trust flow of the ranking page for a home page URL, like what we're looking at here, then you would actually look at the URL, because that's going to be the trust flow specific to this URL. Like you, instead of looking at the root domain, like trust flow metrics, which is like an aggregate or an average or something of like all of the pages and posts and everything on the site itself. Like that's my understanding of it anyways. And I could be incorrect, but what I understand is you want to look at whatever the ranking URL is to get the actual true trust flow metrics for that specific URL, if that makes sense. Okay. Anyways, that's just a little majestic thing. So between that, guys, like I said, if we go now take a look at this, this is what I was saying about, you know, going in it. All I do is I go into the backlinks, and there's 3 different types of anchor, or excuse me, 5 different types of anchor text categories. Why did it sign me out? Son of a bitch. Hold on a minute. Let me get back in there, guys. But yeah, there's 5 different types of anchor text categories. There are brand / URL, which is one. Okay, I'm back in there. And I put that right here in the link building tier 1 section. Anchor text categories. There's brand / URL, which I consider one and the same. And so any version of the URL anchor, any version of the brand name, all of those considered as one type of anchor text category. Okay, so brand / URL. Topic is keyword only. Target is keyword plus location modifier. So keyword plus city, essentially. Miscellaneous is generic. It's, you know, generic anchors essentially, or long strings of anchors. For example, if you are syndicating blog posts to a syndication network and you're using the title as the anchor text that links back, is hyperlinked to the post URL. If the blog title can, you know, is a normal blog title, which means there's multiple words in there, I consider that miscellaneous. It's a miscellaneous anchor, even if keywords are in there, because it's a long string anchor, you know, it's a long anchor text string. So I consider that miscellaneous or generic. And then frame or empty. That's what I was talking about. Iframes, image links without alt text, etc. So all of those are considered the 5 different types of anchor text categories. So all I do is in this sheet, guys, and like I said, this is just an example, is I just go through and I do a quick analysis or using Majestic for each one of the ranking URLs that are apples to apples comparisons. So looking at local business type websites that are ranked, not directory sites. And all I do is jump in here and I take a look at backlinks, and I go to status live, because all I want to look at are live links, not deleted links. Okay. So this now shows 22 live links. Okay. So that means this site has 22 backlinks, in my opinion, the way that I'm looking at it. And if we were to go through here and see, sometimes you'll see the plus symbol here, and I'm sure we'll find that at some point where it'll show you other backlinks from the same domain. But all I do is I know, okay, in my head, I know branding URL anchors, I'm going to consider those the same type of category. So all I do is I just scroll down. I know this is a manual process, but fortunately there's not a lot of links to look through. And I just say, okay, that's a brand URL anchor. So I just count it, right? So there's 1, brand URL 2, brand URL 3, brand URL 4, right? I just go on down the line and I count them until I get to the bottom of the page, right? Because again, there's not that many. There's only 22 links here. And okay, and I count them up and I say, okay, that's how many brand URL anchors I have. So for MD Tree Service, At the time that I did this, there was 15 referring domains, and there was 10 of those 15 were brand URL anchors. And then I just scroll, I go back over to it and I look at it again. I start right back up at the top and I say, okay, now I'm going to look for topic anchors, which are just keyword only. And I see, are there any topic anchors? And I just scroll on down and look at the anchor text for each, and I count them off, use my hand, toes, whatever I got to use. And then I say, okay, there's 3 topic anchors. Okay, so I mark that off. And then I go through and I go target anchors. How many target anchors are there? Count it off, post it into the sheet. Excuse me, I keep doing that. And all said and done, and in frame or empty anchors as well. And then it's going to average it out. I put the total number of referring domains right here, right? And then I just put the count here. And then, by the way, this is it's just the total of these combined, each one of these combined. So it just knows, it's just a way to make sure that I've accounted for every link. So if I change this over here, it'll change over there. So for example, if I put 9 here, it should update to 14. So I know that I missed one because there's a total of 15 links and there's only 14, if that makes sense. Anyway, I just did that as a little trick for myself. But what's interesting here, guys, is, and I've said this before, and I always thought this was really interesting, this Baltimore example, is that for the vast majority of all tree service sites that I analyze, and for all keywords in the tree service industry that I'm analyzing, this sort of backlink profile, and all I'm trying to do is figure out what the average anchor text ratios are for the top ranked local business competitors. That's it. Okay. And generally, what I thought was really interesting about this particular search query is that brand URL is only 34%, and there's 0 topic, 0 target. There is 50% miscellaneous anchors and 16% frame. And here's what I'm starting to tell you guys, was that I found really interesting is in analyzing well over 100 different search queries, or I should say hundreds really, search queries over the last several months since I started getting back into doing organic ranking and link building and stuff like that, is about 80% of the time I'm going to have, and these numbers are, I mean, like, it's, for me, it's almost law. That's why I said about 80% of the keywords that I do this type of analysis on, it's 60 to 80% brand anchors. And then it's 15 or 10 to 15% miscellaneous anchors. And in the remaining 5 to 10% split up between frame, target, and topic. And usually topic is the least amount of anchor text types that I find. So it's really interesting, but this particular, Tree Service Baltimore, this is kind of an outlier, or an anomaly, I should say, because this is showing 34% brand / URL, 50% miscellaneous, which I thought was, very interesting. And then 16% frame anchors, which, by the way, you see a lot of this, actually, believe it or not. I see a lot of frame anchors, at least in the industry that I'm in. I have not been doing this sort of analysis on any other industry, guys, so I can't tell that. But in my industry, like I said, about 80% of the time, we're talking about 60 to 80% of the anchor text ratios are in brand URL, and about 15 to 20, 25% in miscellaneous. And then whatever's left is usually split between frame and target. Very, very rarely do I even see topic anchors anymore at all, which is insane, because you would think, and I would have thought prior to actually doing all this analysis over the last several months, I would have thought for sure that topic anchors, because they're less optimized than target anchors, that you'd see more of those, right? But it's not true. What's interesting is it's like, again, and I think this is great to know, because when in doubt, the whole reason I'm telling you this is, when in doubt, just build more brand URL anchors and miscellaneous anchors, at least in my industry. Again, you're going to have to figure this out on your own, but you have kind of a template now that you can use to go start analyzing this stuff, and you'll start to see trends. And when you do, it makes it really easy, because I know, and again, this is kind of an anomaly. This is not the typical type of anchor text ratio profile that I see. Generally, it's real heavy brand URL, and with with miscellaneous anchors being the second most, the second highest percentage. And then there's always, whatever's left is usually always split up between target and frame anchors. So what I like about knowing that is that I can go into anything now and know that really all I got to do is build a lot of brand / URL anchors and sprinkle some miscellaneous anchors in. And I'm naturally, because of the SEO Shield and what we teach and the iframe stacks and everything else, we're going to get a lot of frame empty anchors anyways, because of iframes. So it's going to create a really natural looking link profile if I just do a bunch of brand / URL anchors and mix a few miscellaneous anchors in there, because everything else is going to be done through the, the frame anchors are already going to be built through all the iframe stacks that we do anyways. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm saying when in doubt, guys, go real, at least in my industry. Whenever I'm in doubt, all I do is just go real heavy on brand/URL. This, like I said, is a little bit of an outlier, and I thought that was really interesting. I should probably have another example showing what I normally see. But I thought that was really interesting to think that this is a, Tree Service Baltimore being a major metropolitan area. That's the most broadest or general of keywords. And if fully 50% of their anchor text profiles of the top ranked competitors are in miscellaneous, which is really interesting, right? So all that said, again, this average number of links, I don't care about that. That was just kind of just for shits and giggles. I did that. But what's interesting is now I know it's 22 for this particular, and I could go through and update all this. But my point was at the time that I created this, and these, some will come and go, referring domains always do. But out of all this, like, look, number 2, remember, this is ranking because this is a big site, big brand with a lot of locations up and down the East Coast. A lot of their ranking is probably from internal link juice, which is why 7 external referring domains is probably enough to rank them. But like, let's look at this one, right? We could take a look at this one. Oops, try that again. So this is the URL, but since that's a home page, I would want to switch to the root. 14 backlinks. You guys see that? 14 backlinks. So I would go to backlinks. And then I would just go, like I said, status. I'm going to go to live. There's 13 live. 1 was dead. We're deleted. And now I'm just going to scroll down through here and I would say, okay, brand. This is an empty anchor. You guys see that? It says no anchor text. That's an empty anchor. That's what I was talking about. Okay. So an iframe, image tag or an image link with no alt text. That's a redirect. In this case, it's a redirect. So again, coming back to here, 301 redirect acts as a frame or an empty anchor. Okay. So you guys see that? And then scrolling down, there's another, that's a brand/URL. There's a miscellaneous, no alt text. So this is an image link with no alt text. So that's what I consider empty or frame, right? Miscellaneous. This one, I would probably consider this brand, even though it squeezed gallery in there, because it's mostly 3 out of 4 words are brand, right? Miscellaneous, no anchor text, redirect, empty. That's an empty link, empty anchor. Get it? So again, going back to here, guys, it makes it super easy to look at all this and say, look at this. All I got to do is get my anchor text ratios close to this ratio here. And it doesn't have to be exact. In my case, because this is like I said, kind of an outlier, I would go heavier than instead of me trying to actually meet this kind of anchor text ratio, I would still go heavy on brand/URL, but I would make sure that I had enough miscellaneous in there to make that a pretty sizable amount of the percentage of the anchor text ratio, right? But it's really encouraging in my mind to look at this and say the average number of backlinks to rank a page on page 1 in Baltimore for Tree Service Baltimore is 17. I can hit that with these, right? I don't need to go outside of here. And if I do need to go outside of here, which by the way, you can just keep adding additional tier 1 groups. And I like to do them 3 at a time. I don't know why, just kind of the way I like to do it. But I could always go to the additional web 2s that are going to be built back here. And again, this is really good if you have a valid business location. If you don't have a valid business location, I recommend not building citations because citations are formal business directories. A lot of those sites, if you have to list a street address, if it's a spammed location where it's, a pin drop method that was tied to somebody's house that the business doesn't actually reside there or something like that. If you start building citations, guys, that physical address will start receiving solicitation mail for like pen companies that want to sell you marketing specialties, direct mail companies. Like, I'm serious, they'll start getting mail there addressed to the company because you're now on a marketing list. That address is on a marketing list for that brand, and that brand doesn't really reside there. People will complain if it goes to a residence or to another business, for example. And you can get your GMB suspended. I've had it happen. So I try not to build, for the most part, citations to spammed GMB listings unless I have access to a mailbox at that address. So like, a PO box, which still does work. In case you guys didn't know, you can still register GMBs to PO boxes as long as you use the street address option. Absolutely still works. In that case, you do get a mailbox, so you can actually do citations. But anyway, I just started to tell you that because local social mesh, This is a great service in Marketer Center. It's $90 and you get 60 citations and 60 social citations that are, that are interlinkable to a degree, which means they list some of the other properties. And that's what's important about citations as well. That's part of why I do it on the ID page, is to start making those associations. With social citations, if you can interlink to other social citations, you're referencing other entity assets, right? So you create kind of like this geometric growth of a knowledge graph is what you're building. You're building a knowledge graph for your entity, your brand, using a bunch of different assets out there, right? And so interlinking is important, but that's part of the reason I do that on the ID page. Okay. But to me, that's beautiful, guys. You just go in there and build a bunch of links that you have 100% control over. Branded Web 2s is perfect for that. High authority sites, preferably with do follow links, search for those. And then you can go in and publish tier 1 entity tune content, treat that stuff like money site content. You don't need a lot of links, at least not in my industry, as shown here, right? Get your anchor text ratios right. When in doubt, go heavy on brand/URL. And then all you do from there is build your tier 2 links. You power up those assets. And I'm going to very quickly talk about this tier 2 link building strategy. And then I'm going to talk about a couple of the traffic things that I do with Viper guys, and I'm going to wrap it up. I'd like to be done by 6 p.m. Eastern. So it's about another 40 minutes. Michael, hope I'm not going too long. I mean, with the 6-hour deals that you're used to.
You know what? This is pretty good, man. But, I think you could do a 6.5 Bradley.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you.
Maybe we, if y'all are getting tired of this, I'm going to wrap it up.
No,
now.
this is great, man. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Great. I appreciate that, man. All right, guys. So really quickly, tier 2 link building strategy is a lot easier in my opinion. Look, if you have Search Console associated with the project, guys, this has been my go-to strategy for tier 2 link building for a long time. And this is what I do to this day. It works incredibly well, which is just if you have Search Console associated with a particular project, which means you have a self-hosted money site, obviously, go in there, go to Search Console, look, go to Performance tab, maybe look back 6 months. I like to try to keep what's more current or recent. So I usually don't go back past 6 months, but I set my time frame to look at the performance stats for the last 6 months. If it's a new site, guys, then if you have other projects in the same industry, but perhaps in a different location, you can still use the same data, right? The same search query report data. You just swap out the location modifiers with what's appropriate for your project. But if you don't have a Search Console, then what I recommend is, guys, one of the best things in the world that you can do is use like a Magic Page plugin or Mass Page tool that you can build and use specifically even if you're not into Mass Page stuff, which I haven't been for a long time, but I've just started testing last couple of months with Magic Page plugin. I think it's great. Mike Martin, I'm sure everybody in Platinum knows Mike Martin. Anyway, is to use those tools for discovery. They're great, guys, to go out, just slap up a domain, throw some content on it, build out some Magic Pages. Doesn't have to be a big site. Just throw up a domain that you even like with no intention of ranking it. It doesn't matter. It'd be great if it did. That'd be a nice bonus, but just throw up a Magic Page or Mass Page type site on a domain with some decent content. It doesn't have to be like money site content, but just some decent content. And then add it to Search Console. Just let it sit. Run a little bit of traffic to it to help it get indexed. Run a few backlinks to it. If you have backlink building tools, again, these aren't money sites, so it's okay to run some spam links to it just to help them to index. But put it in Search Console. Submit the sitemap to Search Console. Help Google index this shit. Crawl the stuff. Because what happens is you can use Search Console Query Report to show you the exact keywords that people are searching Google for, that your site and any page on your site gets an impression for. It doesn't matter where it ranks. I can go into Search Console and sometimes see if you check the box to show average position in Search Console. I've seen it literally track a position as high as 218, which means on page 22 in the SERP results, right? Does that make sense? So it's just what I'm talking about is using a domain in a Magic Page or Mass Page type of site for keyword discovery. And that's where I was at the very beginning of this webinar when I pulled up in Google Ads and I was showing you keywords in the keyword planner. You will see keywords that get hundreds of impressions, sometimes thousands of impressions in Search Console Query Report that Google Ads keyword planner shows 0 search volume for. So that's how I know for a fact that the Google Ads keyword planner is only showing you data based around keywords that people are bidding on in Google Ads. It does not show you search volume metrics for keywords that are searched by organic searches. Does that make sense? When you look at Search Console, and you can like, so for example, if you're dealing with a multi-location brand, which I have a number of those that I run for both lead gen and for some client stuff too. But what you can do is in the Search Console performance report, you can click the Pages tab, then select the appropriate page for the location associated with the GMB, and then hit the queries report. And it will only show you the search queries that page has been given an impression for. And again, you can check this average position box and it will show you, I've seen it go as high as 218, which means page 22 in the SERP results. Yet that search query was relevant enough that Google found the page relevant enough to give it an impression. Even if it's way, 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 way back in page 22, it was relevant enough that Google thinks there's an association there that it gave it an impression. So those are my hands down the best keywords that you can use for tier 2 link building. So that's what I recommend. And again, I've got the steps listed right here, guys. So I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. I just want you to know, like, all I do for tier 2 link building now is I go Search Console performance queries, or do it by page if it's a multi-location brand, or if I'm, building links to a piece of content that's in one specific silo, for example, then I'll click into a page that's relevant to that silo, and so that I'm only getting search queries that are relevant to that particular page, if that makes sense. However I have to segregate or segment my keyword data from Search Console, I do it. But the point is I then sort by impressions. What I like to look for, and by the way, we can talk about doing the exact same thing for traffic campaigns in Viper. Same thing as in Viper when you want to do, and again, I think I might have even, yeah, right here. So I had this in this presentation. So these are the anchor texts that I use for tier 2 links. All I do is go extract and you can export it from Search Console into a Google Sheet or a CSV file. I typically do it in a Google Sheets. And then what I do is I like to sort by impressions, and so that in descending order, so my keywords with the highest impressions or search queries with the highest impressions are at the top. And then I go through and I delete from the Google Sheet, after I've exported it from Search Console, any of the keywords that aren't fully relevant to my project. Because you'll get those. You'll get search queries that Google gave an impression for that really aren't truly relevant, or they're too broad or too general or whatever. So I go in and I eliminate those, and whatever I end up with, I usually pick a threshold. Like if I'm looking at 6 months of data, I might say, okay, I'm going to use all of the search queries that had 100 impressions or more, 101 impressions or more. So anything over 6 months, anything underneath 100 impressions in 6 months, I'm not even going to bother putting those in my keyword list to be used as anchor text for tier 2 links. But anything with 100 impressions or more, I'm going to, and it varies depending on what the overall impression counts are and everything else. But my point is I choose a threshold for the data that I'm looking at that time. And then I take whatever's left that met that impression count criteria and above. So anything above that particular number, whatever it is at that time, and all of the relevant search queries, because I deleted all the ones that weren't relevant. And that becomes now my anchor text list that I use for tier 2 links. And I build all my tier 2 links using those, and those only. Oh, those with some brand anchors mixed in. Why do I say that? Because if you're building tier 2 anchors to tier 1 assets, aren't all of these tier 1 branded, aren't all of these tier 1 assets branded assets, or at least referencing the brand? So in other words, even if I'm going to publish a separate and unique article, SEO tuned, entity tuned content on a persona based profile, not a branded profile, but like, a John Smith, John Doe, Joe Smith, whatever, WordPress.com or Blogger or whatever, then it's still going to be an article that's going to be referencing a brand, right? It's a tier 1 link. So it's going to be referencing the brand. So I can link to that article, whether it's on a branded asset or elsewhere, but it's referencing the brand with a brand anchor. So all I'll do is, like I said, I'll take the Search Console query report, extract the relevant keywords with the highest impression counts above some minimum threshold that I determine at the time that I'm developing the list. And then I'll work in brand and variations of the brand, right? So, company, company.com, company Inc., company LLC, all those different types of variations, that kind of stuff. I don't do URL anchors in that case, because it would look funny to have a URL anchor for the brand that goes to another site, if that makes sense. So I don't do that, but I do brand anchors, and that's it. And I use those same exact keywords, guys, also, that's a great strategy to talk about Viper tools. Why does shit keep, there it goes. I was gonna say, why does it keep resetting? The same thing goes for Search Console, guys. I think Search Console is a wealth of information. If you guys aren't using that for SEO, you're nuts. And I know Mike Martin doesn't, he does not connect any of his Magic Page sites to Search Console. He just doesn't do it. I think he's missing out. I mean, again, to each their own. He's really successful at what he does. I'm not putting Mike Martin down. I really respect that dude. He's a badass. But what I'm saying is I get massive amounts of data from Search Console, guys. And like I said, even if you're not using Mass Page as part of your strategy, which is fine, Magic Page plugin or any Mass Page tool, I recommend that you just throw up a domain, especially if you're not familiar with an industry that you're going to be competing in. Throw up a Magic Page site, Mass Page site on a domain, get it indexed, submit the sitemaps and everything to Search Console, and allow that to start collecting data for you that you can use. Because it doesn't matter where it ranks. It's just about identifying the search queries for that industry in that location. And those are the best keywords that you can possibly use for link building for tier 2, especially. And likewise, when you do have projects that are connected to Search Console, you can go in and find these same queries for those projects for Viper tools to start doing, sending traffic, search and click traffic for those queries. Specifically, though, you don't want to find a query that's on page 3 or 4. I mean, maybe you do. I don't like to. What I like to do is find queries that are on page 2. Right? So anything between position 11 and 20. And what I like to do is find those that have high impression counts so they're relevant to the business and have high impression counts. And then I start sending traffic to those. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of activity to push it, especially like if it's between like position 11 and 15. A lot of the times just a small amount of search and click traffic on that keyword. Well, first of all, it gives you an idea like, okay, whatever page has been given an impression for that search query, how can I make that keyword, that search query, more prominent on the page? Can I add another paragraph that's optimized for that particular query? Can I add a heading tag? Can I add, whatever you can do, right? Do you need to perhaps publish a blog post for that specific query and place it in that silo and use that blog post as a supporting article with an internal link back up to the landing page, right? Whatever the case may be, the idea is to find those opportunities with Search Console where you're almost to page 1 and then start pushing a little bit of traffic on them, and that'll help them to rank, right? So those are all, like, again, great strategies, guys, to use Search Console data. Or, if you don't have Search Console and you're just doing, most of you are going to have Search Console. But if you don't, like in my case, and some of my tree service stuff that I just do GMB assets with no location landing page associated, it's just GMB assets. You can get some of that data from GMB Insights, although it's typically a lot more restricted. And in other words, it doesn't give you nearly as much, keyword stuff data as Search Console does. So that would be, again, another example of where you can just take a domain, slap it up, throw a Magic Page on it, publish some pages, throw a few backlinks at it, submit it to Search Console, and give it a couple of weeks, and it will start to show you data. And that's, again, you can base all of your campaigns around that, right? Okay, so that was a lot to get to some of the traffic strategies, guys. We've got about 30 minutes left. I know all of you are ninjas here at using Viper tools, so there's not really a whole lot that I need to share here, except I wanted to talk about, what I talked about with brand campaigns being, in my opinion, the most important type of campaigns you can run. And I mean that, guys, 100%. I think that's the most important campaign you can run. Second most important campaign, in my opinion, referral campaigns. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I think these are really, really, really powerful. And that's because I've been using them for mainly press releases, like for a long time, for years, but more specifically with CT spam, Viper tools. And there are some really, really good strategies for that, which we've talked about before. But, and the previous webinar I did with Michael, it was really only about 2 methods, and one of them was referral traffic through press releases. So I like to do this, but remember, guys, as I was talking about Mike Merlino earlier, Michael, excuse me. I know that he sends traffic through his citations, and that helps them to be counted, really. Because a lot of those citations aren't, they're really almost disregarded. So sending traffic through citations, that's good. I don't do that as often as I probably should, because I do a lot of referral traffic through press releases and also PBN links, guys, or tier 1 links, period. Right? Here's the thing, guys. We know y'all probably know this, that links atrophy over time. It's one of the ways that Google has been, they built that into the algorithm as a way to combat spam, to combat SEOs, to fuck with us, right? To make us less effective, right? Is if you build a link out there, unless it's on a particularly like very powerful page, which is typically going to have natural traffic anyways, if you build a link somewhere that never gets a click on it, never has any traffic or activity on that link, it atrophies over time. And I don't know what the rate is that at which it atrophies. And when I say that, it means it becomes less powerful over time. With no engagement on a link, it's built right into the algorithm that that link becomes less powerful over time until it is completely deprecated by Google. It won't hurt you, but it won't help you either. Does that make sense? So, and I'm sure that the threshold with which it, or the speed or the rate at which it atrophies is probably variable depending on the topic, the source of the link itself. There's probably a number of variables. I'm quite sure there are. I don't know what they are, but I'm assuming that like low quality links atrophy a lot quicker than links that are placed on high authority pages. Does that make sense? So, and that's just my assumption, and it's logical to assume that, but that's just my assumption. I don't know. I don't work for Google. But what I'm saying is a link that is placed on a page that never gets any activity, over time, it becomes less and less effective until it's literally just discounted or deprecated entirely. It's not, again, it won't hurt, but it won't help. So one of the ways that you can make your backlinks more powerful is just send a little bit of traffic. Exactly what Michael was talking about in his Facebook posts, which I've referenced now a few times. Michael Merlino, I mean. It's one of the best ways, guys, that you can keep links powerful, which again, if you're going back to my link building diagram, if you know that you don't need to build that many links, tier 1 links, and all you really have to do is get your anchor text ratios right, and then you can just power up your tier 1 links with tier 2 links. And that's where the magic happens, right? That's where you want to do all your link building, is at tier 2 to your tier 1 assets. But then send a little bit of traffic through these links, guys. Set up some traffic campaigns in Viper. Doesn't need to be much, guys. If you get 1 or 2 clicks per month on any one of these links, it's still valid. It's still going to keep passing juice, right? Because it's activity. Google's tracking that shit. Remember, Google's tracking that stuff because of people's Chrome browsers, because analytics, because tag manager code, because Google's code is on everything, right? It's everywhere. It's in fonts and WordPress, the headers, right? Google fonts, right? So Google's code is everywhere. It knows what activity, when people are clicking into a site and when people are clicking out of a site, it knows it. So my point is, all you got to do is send a little bit of traffic. I mean, a couple of clicks a month is all you need to do. Set up a campaign that runs for 24 hours. That sends 2 clicks, and then just repeat that every month. Go back in and clone the campaign, change your drip rate out, your days in Viper, and then run it again, right? If you have particular, links that you want that are particularly powerful, set up a 28-day campaign on a drip schedule with 4, 5, 6, 8 clicks in a month, and leave and just keep repeating it every month. Right? Because again, that's a way that you keep those links valid and powerful. And then always, and remember, here's the thing, you keep powering these tier 1 links up with tier 2 links using the anchor text ratios that I just talked about, right? From Search Console. And then you send some traffic through those too, if you can. I mean, I typically don't send a lot of traffic to tier 2 links, because a lot of those I end up buying from like PBNs and stuff. And it does make sense though, to also send traffic through tier 2 links. I just 100% honest. I typically don't do that very much. I mostly just send them through tier 1 assets. Right. But that's just another great hack, guys, to keep your link building really powerful. And that's what I'm getting at is when you don't need to create hundreds of links and you only have a handful of links, a couple of dozen max is all that's really I need. Then it makes it easy to keep them active. Right. And that's going to make all the difference in the world. All right. So press releases, tier 1 links, PBN links, that's a great way to keep them powerful. I like to check direct non-search traffic, put the website, the referral page URL in there, and then the specific URLs become your target URLs, right? So that's a 1-2 step. You send the traffic first to, and here's the thing, if you do have some tier 1 content that you've optimized well and it's ranking, which again, if you're treating your tier 1 money site content like your tier 1 content like money site content, you optimize it well, it's very likely that these posts are going to rank too. especially when you start hitting them with tier 2 links and you start powering them up. So my point is, not only can you just do direct traffic through these to these pages, which then, the follow up, the click through goes to your money assets, but you can also do search and click traffic when they start to rank, which again, if you treat this content like money site content, it's likely that this can rank, especially when you start powering it up with tier 2 links. Like just having entity tuned content on these pages alone, typically not going to rank. But when you start powering it up with the tier 2 link building, if it's well-tuned content, it has a very good chance of ranking. And so then you can start doing search and click traffic too, with obviously the first step is to search the keyword, what it's ranked for, then click through, and then click through to the money page or money site or your assets that you're linking to from within that post or page. Does that make sense? It's a very, very powerful strategy. I've talked about this before, but really quickly, and then we're going to talk about some of the search strings, guys. I'd like to be done in about 20 minutes. I might have to stick around for some questions, I know, so I'll try to get to some of those too. All right, so one other thing I want to share here is let's just give an example. We'll go back to, I'm just going to try this. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Try that again. All right. So here's a patch.com article. It's a great patch.com is fabulous, guys. It's free. They rank. You can rank for keywords. I'm not going to share that here because I talked about this in our mastermind. But all I'm saying is, guys, and this is a Brock Misner. I learned this from him. Misner. I'm sorry. He's going to be on with Hump Day Hangouts with us this week. By the way, our 7-year anniversary for Hump Day Hangouts is Wednesday. Episode 364. Can you believe that? 7 years doing that show.
7 years? Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding.
Dude,
episode 364 is Wednesday. That's our 7-year anniversary show on Wednesday.
Yeah, man. I totally remember the very first one. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Long time we've been doing that. But I learned this strategy to use patch.com from Brock, and he's going to be on as a guest. By the way, he's got a fabulous Patreon channel, guys. Patreon.com. It's $20 a month. If anybody here is doing GMB stuff, go subscribe, become a paying subscriber to his Patreon channel. It's $20 a month. It's 100% worth it. He only does a video or two. Sometimes he does a couple more, but usually a video or two per month, and usually short, punchy little videos that have a very specific hack that he just figured out for manipulating Google My Business stuff. It's fabulous. I mean, it's really, really, really good for $20 a month. I'm definitely a fanboy for sure. So he's going to come check out, or if you guys want to ask him some questions and stuff, he's going to be on with us on Wednesday as a guest host. Anyway, so patch.com, that's not specifically what I was going to talk about, but like here's Digital Journal. So this is an example of what I was talking about. I've shared this before, guys. I have this extension. It's both in Firefox as well in Chrome. It's called Link Gopher. But whenever I'm doing a press release or anything that I don't have full control over, this is part of the reason why, for example, like citations, powering up citations, as an example, right? You can find citations out there that provide do follow links. So those are the types of citations that I would want to power up with additional link building. Excuse me. However, if you know about citations, there are typically dozens of internal links on a citation directory page, right? So even if it's providing a follow link, which is rare, but you can find them. If you start building links to that citation page, you're actually going to be splitting link equity to all the internal links on the page too, right? So you're only going to get a fraction of whatever link equity you're pushing to that page to your do follow link on the citation page. So that's specifically why if I'm powering up citations or things like patch articles, I like to use spam links, bulk spam, because like, first of all, these are no follow links. Doesn't matter. These still become powerful links. But take a look at this. Like I got my no follow highlighter here, and you can see these are all no follow links. Okay. But what I like about whenever I'm powering up something like a patch article or a press release of any kind, really, or any citation or anything like that, I like to use bulk spam links because I just hit it with thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of links to push power into it, because a lot of that link equity is going to split across all the internal links. And just to give an example, like again, Digital Journal, this is one that I like to build links to. If I go click on Link Gopher, I'm going to extract all links. These are all the links on the page, right? So here's all the links on that page. And there's only 2 links on that page that are my links, right? The rest of them are all internal links or internal or external links that aren't my assets is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? So if we take a look at this, you'll see that right there is my link. Okay, so I would extract that because this is the URL blacklist that I'm building right here, right, for the Viper tools. So I would get rid of that one, and then I would look and see TreeCare HQ Roanoke Facebook page right there. Get rid of that one. And there's a Press Advantage organization page because I do almost always when I publish press releases, I have one target URL, and then I link back to the previous post or previous press release in a silo because I usually do press release silos, or to the Press Advantage organization page, because that's kind of like part of the SEO shield. That's one of the tier 1 entity assets. That organization page is very, very powerful. In fact, let me go over here and I'll show you. Why is this powerful? Because it's an iframe stack. Why, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but this is an iframe stack. And Jeremy did this, the owner, co-owner, co-developer of Press Advantage. He did this for us, right? Puts iframe GMB map, the website, in this case, the GMB website is the website. And then if you see this down here, guys, it's a 1x1 pixel. And if we go view page source, you'll see that 1x1 pixel is the Amazon S3 page. It's just a 1x1 pixel. So if I actually do Control F S3 right there, that's a 0x0 pixel, excuse me. 0x0 iframe of the ID page, right? That's this ID page that I'm telling you about, an iframe stack, which has, guess what? Press Advantage organization page, iframe stack, built like stacked into here, which right down here at the very bottom, right there is that 0x0 pixel with the iframe of this page here. So that's that mirror and mirror again that goes on for infinity. This is that iframe loop. The bots come in, the spiders come in, and they get fucking stuck, which is amazing. It's awesome. And so again, Jeremy built that right into Press Advantage for us. But anyways, I just said that because I like to build, usually with all my press releases, there's one target URL, and then there's usually a link to either the previous PR in the press release silo, if I'm doing a mirror, a PR mirror silo, or it'll link back to the Press Advantage organization page because it continues to power up the organization page, right? Which is this one. And by the way, there's 2 versions of the organization page. The standard version is this one right here, which has the header. I like to get rid of that. If you just put I underscore in front of organization, it turns into the iframe version of it, which again, you think that was accidental or intentional that this was built into this. And the same thing goes for the web. If you guys are doing iframes or embed gigs for press releases to power them up, which you should be, same thing is this is the story published on the Press Advantage domain. And if you put I underscore in front of story, it becomes the version that you want to use for embed gigs. Gets rid of the header. See that? So you're not passing any link juice to Press Advantage through their internal links through the header, if that makes sense. You think that was intentional? So again, these are all things that, you know, it helps. Those little bits help. So all that said, this would become my blacklist inside of Viper Tools. Same thing would go for Patch, right? If I go over here to Patch, I would hit link over, extract all links. I would go through here. I'd put all those in a notepad file, and then I would go through here, which there's a lot more in here because I've got, basically I link to all of my tier 1 entity assets that are built at the time that I published this Patch article. And so I would go through and extract all of those links from here. And then that my blacklist would be what's left, right? And then I could send traffic directly to that Patch article and then tell it to click through any one of those internal links to my money site. And so going back here, like I said, I like to do, you know, for press releases, especially, I like to do like about a 7-day gig. And when Mach 25 is working, which I don't know if it still is right now, I know it's been turned off for a while, but when Mach 25 is working, whenever I publish a press release or a patch.com article, as soon as it's indexed and it's in Google News, Digital Journal will show up in Google News from Press Advantage. Patch will show up in Google News, which is a classified announcement post, by the way, guys. If you do it in Patch, it's a classified announcement post. But as soon as I find that it's been indexed, then I will set up a Mach 25 campaign for, you know, it's not a drip, so it's like immediate. So I set up a Mach 25 campaign with high volume, direct volume to that PR right off the bat, or you know, if it ranks for like the brand name or something like that, then I might do a search and click campaign where it searches the brand name and then clicks through the ranked PR for the brand search. Either way, either one of those will work, but send a flood, like, and usually when I say flood for local press releases, I do anywhere between like, 150, and I usually do an odd number, like 112 to 168, like something like that. I'll go to like literally do random number generator in Google, and I'll just plug in like, like I said, I'll say random number generator. And well, usually if you do it in a Google search anyways, just give me a second. I'll show you what I typically do right there. You can do it right here. And I'd say, okay, minimum is like 112, excuse me. And I'd say like maximum is like, I don't know, 168, 67, good enough. And I'll just say generate, and boom, I'll say, okay, I'm going to do 140 searches, Mach 25, or 140 visits, whether it's a search and click or direct visit, Mach 25 first. And then I set up a high volume 7-day search and click campaign for usually the brand name, because usually the brand name is going to be in every title anyways. And so I'll do a high volume search and click campaign for the PR. And then I'll set up a 28-day search and click campaign as well that has more normal type volume for the keywords or for the brand searches. And those types of things help to keep those PRs relevant and helps to keep them ranking. And also, again, those are great signals, referral-based traffic signals back to your money pages or your tier 1 assets, period. Because again, if we go take a look, like for example, Patch, we've got multiple tier 1 entity assets linked to from right here. So each time we can send traffic there and send clicks to those, it's just great signals into that kind of that branded ecosystem, right? You guys get that? So those are all really good strategies. So lastly, let's go ahead and cover just a couple of the manipulation strategies that I want to talk about. So, all right, I'm going to talk about this. Now, this is something that, again, I learned from Matt Bowley. First, let me talk about the search strings a little bit, and then we'll go back here to this branded search string right here. Okay, let's extract that as the URL. A lot of this is just junk that we can get rid of. What's important is, I'm going to zoom in on that a little bit, guys. Just give me a minute. All right, what's really important is this. The rest of that's just tracking information for Google. Right there, that's a search query. That's a branded search query. Okay, this isn't going to be a great, this particular location is one of a couple of locations that I really kind of use more for training purposes than actually ranking. So some of this, because it's newer and it doesn't have a lot of authority built, it's not going to pop some of the search queries like I would want to show with a branded search, like something that's more authoritative, that's more established. But what I'm trying to say here is this right here is the search query that you can start to manipulate. And these are the types of search strings that you can send traffic to. You can do direct traffic. So you check the box in Viper and then set this in there. And what happens is this click through now acts as if it's a signal to Google that mimics somebody going to Google and typing in that search query and then hitting the search button or enter or whatever in Google. Does that make sense? So these are search signals, right? That can be sent with just a click. And this is what how I started manipulating this with Google Ads before we could instruct, like with Viper Tools, you can tell, go click this link and then do this, then click this link too, right? And don't click these links. That's what the blacklist is for, right? But you can't do that with Google Ads. So one of the things that I wanted to do with Google Ads was I started manipulating these search queries so that whatever's listed on page 1 here is going to be most likely, and you can manipulate these. And guys, play around with these search strings. Don't wait for me to teach you. Just start playing around with this. You're not going to hurt anything by playing with these search strings and seeing what happens. But you can start working keywords in here, just the plus symbol for any spaces. You can work in quotes, quotation marks if you need to around certain phrases that you. But what I'm saying is, I started learning how to manipulate these because with Google Google Ads, because what I wanted was, if I'm going to send an ad click to one of these kind of SERPs results, right? SERP pages, which is a SERP. I want all branded assets on this page if possible, so that the visitor, the real Google visitor, if they land on this page and they were in market, if they click on anything else, it's engaging with another one of my branded assets. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like if with Viper Tools, we can do it very easily because we can say, first click on this search query, which is on my clipboard. And what's it going to do? It's a branded search. And then all of these I don't think there's any competing other than ads. I don't think there's anything competing on this page, any competitors on this page. So we could tell Viper Tools to click any one of these other URLs here or engage with the knowledge panel, right? Whatever. We can tell Viper Tools to do that. You can't do that with Google Ads. So I started manipulating search queries with keywords and keywords appended to the brand and all that kind of stuff. So that, and sometimes you have to use quotes, because if it's kind of a keyword search that's not producing enough branded results in the result, like enough branded assets in the search results, and it's mostly competitors, then I would start using quotation marks for phrase match stuff to try to get it to pop mainly just my assets, so that if I'm sending paid traffic to it, that if once they land on this page and they engage, they're likely going to engage with one of the branded assets because it's all the appropriate brand. With Viper Tools, we can kind of direct it to do that. But let me just give you an example. So like, what if I said, and sometimes I'll switch it around and do this, like tree removal, right? That's a primary keyword. So I might do something like this and send some traffic to this. Again, either Google Ads or Viper Tools. What happens, guys, is over time, now you see this is starting to bring back other competitors. So this is where you can start to play with some of these, put quotation marks around certain things and see if it comes back. So like, for example, if we take a look at, that's interesting. If we go back and take a look at that first search without the quotation marks, let me just go back over to Google. Whoops. In fact, let's do this. So this is what I'm trying to get at, guys, is you can start to, excuse me. Come on, man. Try one more time. Come on, man. I sounded like Let's Go Brandon just now. Okay. So if you notice here, guys, you'll see this actually turned out pretty good. Sometimes with these types of search queries, you'll also see in the organic section, not necessarily maps, because remember with Viper Tools, we can direct it to just overlook any of these here and just go straight down the organic section and click. But sometimes, and this is actually, I'm surprised because this is a newer location. But you can, if there were other competitors down here, then, and not showing all branded assets in the organic section, then that's where I'll start using some quotation marks so that I can force more of my branded assets to appear in the organic section. In this case, it looks like it ended up being pretty much all branded stuff anyways, other than the ads and the map section. But this is what I was getting at with being able to start manipulating search, guys. So for example, if I start typing in Ruckersville here, or was that Roanoke? We were looking at Roanoke, weren't we? Yeah. Okay. So whatever, I've got a few that are like that. But if I start typing in Roanoke here, these are all the suggested phrases. What I'm saying is if you start sending traffic to these types of search query strings, guys, enough, and I don't know what the threshold is, I'm sure it varies depending, there's probably a lot of variables, but you can start to have your name brand appear, the brand name appear alongside generic search queries in Search Suggest. And that stands out. That literally jumps out of Suggest at people, right? And so that's a great way to get, first of all, not only that, but you're also just the nature of a direct click to that SERP URL, that modified URL right there, starts to create an association at the algorithm level with this keyword and this brand. Does that make sense? So I could set up search queries and I could vary this, right? I could do it like this, vary the format, right? And I could also do tree trimming, tree pruning, arborist tree care, stump grinding, all that kind of stuff. And again, each time that URL is clicked, it's acting as if somebody went and did an actual search for that particular phrase, and it starts to associate the brand with these queries. And over time, and sometimes it can happen as little as 3 days. Sometimes it's taken as long as 3 weeks, but sometimes you'll start seeing the brand name to pop alongside keyword search queries and Suggest. Isn't that a good sign? Think about that, guys. What did I say about brand searches, right? That's the most powerful part of this, in my opinion. So now that's how you start to create associations at the algorithm level with from the brand to your keywords, your products and services, is by sending clicks to those search query URLs. And you can start working in different parameters and things like that, play around with formatting. All I'm trying to show you guys here is not exactly what to do, but like how to start playing with these, start experimenting with these, right? And then likewise, the same thing goes on with the maps. And this is where I say, again, I want to credit Matt Boley with this. I always have to make sure people get credit where it's due. There's too many people in our industry that don't do that. They'll steal somebody else's idea and go share it as if it was their own. And that pisses me off. Why? Because I've produced a lot of training over the years, and a lot of people have ripped our shit off and treated it as if that was their own. And I hate that. Just give credit. Just, that's it. Just, cite the source, period. So anyway, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Dude, that's because there's two kinds of people in this world. There are creators and then there's copiers.
Yeah.
And 99% of people are copiers and 1% are creators.
Yeah, and it pisses me off, man, because it's like, you know what? It's flattering. If you want to share something that I've taught you, that's flattering. Just but that's great. Hope it helps you, and it must have helped you enough to be able to want to go out and share it. But don't pretend like you came up with it. Just credit the source. Period. That's it. Credit the source. So
it's easy, man. But no one ever does that shit. We know who you're talking about, and I get it. I know.
Yeah, it's bullshit, and it happens all the time. But anyway, that said, so again, Matt Boley shared this with me, and I thought this was fantastic. And I couldn't believe that I hadn't thought about it, to be honest with you. But if you go into the share URL, guys, for your map, so pull the knowledge panel, click into the map, whatever, go to the CID map URL, whatever, go into Google Maps, and so that you're looking at your map only, and click on share, and then click on embed a map. And then right here, this view larger map URL, that's the URL. It's just there. You can manipulate all different versions of the map URLs, but I like this one because it's the cleanest and it's the easiest to manipulate. But you just copy that link and put that into a notepad file. Okay. And guys, right here, those are the latitude and longitude coordinates for service area businesses. That's the center of the service area. That's not where the business is physically located. It is the coordinates of the center of the service area. Now, it's probably different for storefront businesses where, customers come to the business location. It's probably going to be the coordinates of the business location. But in service area businesses, it's the center point of whatever the service area is that you've designated in Google My Business. Does that make sense? But those right there is how you start to what I call proximity push, which is manipulate the kind of like to where you can start to push the maps coverage across a larger area than you would probably typically get. So what do I mean by that? Let me show you what I'm talking about. And I'm going way beyond where I wanted to go today as far as time. But hold on, I'm gonna open up a GeoGrid report and I'll show you what I mean. Guys, just give me a minute. And I'll give you a workbook or some notes for this as well. I've created a Google Doc that I use as a template I have my VAs extract, transfer data from the GeoGrid or local search grid report to the notes. And it just makes it easier going forward. Anytime I'm doing a proximity push campaign, just give me a minute, guys. And I'm going to talk more about this on a conceptual level, guys, just because I'm running out of, I'm actually way beyond where I wanted to be on time, but you guys will get the gist of this. And if we have to do a follow-up webinar at another time, I'm happy to, if Michael will be so kind to have me back, if that's necessary. So let me pull in here.
Dude, this is awesome, man. I know I'm speaking for everybody in here, but this is super, super awesome, man. You're doing a great job. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so this is Tree Care Ruckersville. Again, I use this a lot, mainly more for training purposes than anything. So disregard the fact that it's not really ranking, guys. I've probably only done about 20% of the GMB checklist on this. And again, so this is not an example of one of my, ranking money assets, but this is perfect for training purposes. So inside of a local search grid report from Bright Local, this is what I typically use. Anytime I click on one of these nodes, it gives you the latitude and longitude right there of that node, of that specific location, right? You understand that? So what I do is if we, let's take a look. If I don't think I have that available here. No. All right. Give me a minute. Pause the screen again. I'm going to give you guys a copy of my notes template for this. See, notes. All right, and then I'll pull open the one for Ruckersville. I know you guys aren't seeing my screen. Just one moment. I'm going to give you a copy URL for you guys to copy this into your own drive folder. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to drop this link in chat, guys. Michael can have this for the replay too, but guys, make a copy of this and then make a copy of the template. Understand that? Otherwise, you won't have a copy of it. But here's an example of one that's filled out. Okay, this is the same one for Ruckersville. You can adjust this as just a table, insert it into Google Docs. The 7x7 grid for this one. And in this case, because this is a very rural area, so the population density is real low. So this is a much larger kind of service area than I would typically do. Usually I do 1 by 1, 1 mile spacing on GeoGrids, but in this case it's 3 mile spacing. So these are actually 3 miles in between each one of these nodes here. But what I do is I have a VA that goes in, and the center point, the center node is typically where the GMB is located. In this case, it's not actually the case because this is a large service area. Actually, wait a minute. Yeah, actually, this is right. That is correct. In some cases, depending on sometimes I'll have to adjust the center point of the grid, and it'll move where the actual location is, the GMB location is physically located, and I'll have to kind of adjust that. In this case, it's actually, yeah, it's right there. And this is a spammed listing, by the way, for sure. This was a pin drop method. Anyway, that right there is the location where the GMB actually supposedly is located, right? But so again, each one of these, again, if we go up here and I click on this node here and we take a look, those latitude, longitude coordinates are right there. Okay. And then what we do is we go in and, like, for example, if we take a look and I copy this URL, you'll see if I paste this into that notepad file, these latitude and longitude coordinates are different than the original. Does that make sense? So what I did was I took this, which one was that? B4? I can't see 24283. That's this one, C3. So this was node C3. And so that's the modified map URL with those coordinates. And if you notice, you can see that I also have squeezed at the very end of this ampersand Q equals. So that's the code that you just append to the end of the map URL, which is, remember, that's the view larger map URL from the embed a map, view larger map, just right click, copy link, paste it into a notepad file. That becomes, so again, at the bottom of my notes here, the bottom of my notes, that's the original URL right here, right there. Okay, that's the original URL. And you can see that I've added ampersand Q equals. So that's the question or the query string. And then the keyword with plus signs in between any for any spaces, right? So again, what we can do is we can set up, in this case, you can see, I'll shrink this down over here, but you can see that I have tree service Ruckersville, VA as the keyword. Now watch what happens, okay? So first of all, and I want to give you guys kind of an example of, let's do this. Let's extract these node or coordinates right here so that we can show you a very exaggerated example of what I want to show you now, okay? Let's do this, hold on. And I usually only go 6 points back. It looks like I had recorded it that way, so it's not a problem. 6 decimal points back, I mean, whoops. Okay, right there. All right, so now if we take this, we're gonna go visit the original in Firefox, and then we're gonna go look at the modified map URL, and we're gonna see the difference, and you'll see a significant difference, okay? So this is the original. And the zoom level looks like it's out a little bit, but which you can actually see the zoom level right there. Z equals, that's the zoom level. So you can actually modify that a little bit if you wanted. I don't know that that has any SEO value, but I could just zoom in or zoom out by just adjusting that integer right there. But you can see that what this is looking at is, well, this is not Ruckersville, that's Roanoke. Why am I looking at, oh, because you know why? Because I took the Roanoke URL and then I was looking at the Ruckersville report. So let me back up and grab the right URL. That's why that just threw me off. I was like, what? That looks funny. So let's go get the original tree. Oh, the original's right here. I'll just pull that. That's this one. Get rid of the keyword string at the end, query string. Okay, so let's close that out. That was incorrect. All right, here we go. So this is the original. All right, so the map, the viewable area of the map is centered on the center of the service area. That's what those coordinates are in that map. Does that make sense? That's what these coordinates are right here. Well, that one's probably, that was Roanoke. So let me just paste this in here. This is Ruckersville. Okay. So what we're looking at, the map that is displayed, again, the service area is centered. The center of this map, the viewable area of this map is centered on the center of the service area. That's those coordinates that you see right here. Okay. Now we're going to take this one that is the modified map URL with, remember, in this case, because they're three miles apart. So this is 3, 6, 9 miles away from the center point of this one, right? So now if we go visit this, and also one other thing, I'll put this on clipboard, but then I want to show you one other thing is look at the search query in this map, right? It's brand. You guys see that? All right. So now if we take this and we paste this in, notice the huge difference in the map display. Why? Because now the center of this map is showing the coordinates from here. So 9 miles away from that, from that one. Does that make sense? So it shifted the map considerably. And also take a look at the query up here. So you understand that now by sending traffic to that link, that modified map URL, we're doing two things. Number one, we're triggering an association between the coordinates that I added into there with the brand, meaning it's a signal to Google that this brand services that location, as well as it's also making the association to that keyword now, right? So again, I typically wouldn't start with keywords like this with a newer listing that is ranking very poorly like this one is, because again, this is, I haven't even gone, I haven't completed modules 1, 2, and 3 of the GMB checklist on this or anything. Typically, I wouldn't do that. But again, for training purposes, I wanted to be able to use this. So that's why I built this out the way that I did. But what I'm saying is typically, for proximity push, usually you're going to see right where the business is physically located, you're going to see, it ranking fairly well. And then as it starts to expand out, it drops out considerably. So that's where you start to push on those specific nodes, wherever it's yellow. That's where I typically will do it, right? So if it's green in the middle, which it typically will be, even for very poorly optimized stuff, generally it's going to be green right where it's located. And then everywhere around it, it's going to be either red or yellow and then out to red eventually, right? And so what I do is I start just sending traffic. It doesn't take much, guys. It doesn't take much. You just send a few clicks. And by the way, you can do it as a direct click. So in Viper Tools, you can, so Traffic Viper, you could set it up as a direct click, no search, but it just goes directly to that map URL. Or you could do a 1-2 step, a 2-punch, a 1-2, like I do, which is to put the modified map URL in a GMB post button URL. And then you send traffic to the GMB post, and then you have it click in the specified URL to the modified map URL as a GMB post button. Does that make sense? So because now you're getting a 1-2 punch, you're getting a GMB post view, which you'll get emails saying, congratulations, your post has been viewed 25 times. Congratulations, your post has been clicked however many times. And then the CTA button is a link click to the modified map URL. So I can demonstrate that very specifically here, guys, with that that same project for Tree Care Ruckersville. Give me one more second. I'll open that up. And I'll show you what I mean. GMB post workbook right there. I got so many tabs open now, it's ridiculous. I'm losing track. All right. So here's an example. Where were we? Ruckersville. So guys, you have access to this GMB post workbook. It's in the GMB process checklist at the top of the GMB post silo module. It's a copy URL there. Click it, make a copy into your Drive account, make a copy of the template, and then assign the template or the copy of the template to whatever project you're working. And then I just do separate tabs for each location associated with that brand, right? But that way you can keep track of everything up here. And here's a modified map URL silo right here. So as you can see, I've got my target and URL CTA button. Now, in this case, I did a hybrid. I did a combination of what's called a push silo, which again, I've got the diagrams in the GMB process checklist, but I did a combination here of a push silo with modified map URLs. Okay, so I did kind of a combination here because I was trying to kill several birds with one stone, so to speak. But if you notice, I keep a track of the post URLs here that I'm optimizing for here. See that? So that's why if you're going to do an 11 by 11 grid, you'd want an 11 by 11 table. And I number these just like they would be a spreadsheet. So row A, or excuse me, column A, B, C, and then row A, row 1, 2, and 3, so on and so forth, right? And it's just a way to keep track of stuff. so that in my GMB post workbook, I know which node I'm talking about when I look at any one of these URLs. And so let's just take a look. This is a GMB post push silo on the GMB website. So let's just go take a look at what this looks like. All right. So first of all, guys, if we take a look at the root domain, you'll see I've got a couple silos here. You can see that the most recent silo that I did was last week, and it was this one, and it was a 5-post silo. So this is post 1, post top of silo post here, supporting post 1, 2, 3, 4. You get it? So this is right here. If we take a look at this, this is this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 6-post silo, with this being post number 6, this being post number 1. Okay, does that make sense? So if we take a look at this, and now this is a push silo, in that if we take just really quickly, if we go back here and look at the push silo diagram, we're daisy chaining these posts together. Top of silo post, so post number 1, GMB post number 1, the CTA button, which is a follow link, guys, it's a follow link. Okay, you get follow links from GMB websites in 2 locations, the CTA button URL or the CTA button. If you use the book or the learn more button, you get to add a URL. That's a follow link. The only other place that you get a follow link is this make appointment button, which if it's on mobile, it says book, but on desktop, it says make appointment. That's why I have started on all projects for several months now. I take the location landing page. If there's a self-hosted money site associated with the GMB, that now goes in the appointment URL field. If you get an appointment URL field in your GMB, for tree services, you do. And I put the GMB website as the website URL, because the appointment URL field is a follow link from GMB websites, guys. Did you know that? If you didn't know that, now you know that. So that is a follow link to the location landing page. In this case, this is just an HTML page built on swipe pages. I don't have a self-hosted WordPress site to this, but that is a follow link that is present on every inner page, which is a post URL. A GMB post becomes an inner page on the GMB website. That make appointment button is present on every one of those pages. That's a follow link. You understand that, guys? You can push massive power with a GMB website to a location landing page, a self-hosted site, through that button right there. And it's crazy because, again, there's only 2 locations on a GMB website you get a follow link: the button URL and the make appointment field. If you have that in your, for whatever business category you're in GMB, and tree services, you have that. So I swapped it out. There are some cases where clients want, if they have a website, they want their website as the primary website in the GMB profile. But for most of my clients, they don't care. They just want results, and I can get faster results by putting their self-hosted site in the appointment URL field and put their GMB website in the website URL field of their GMB profile. That way I can use the GMB website as a link launderer to push a ton of power from the GMB website to the money site through a Google property. It's super powerful, guys, in case you didn't know. So anyways, that's what I do for most of my clients, but this was post number 6 out of a 6-post. This is a 6-post PR push silo, right? And so again, back on a push silo, guys, we have the daisy chain them out. And I call it a push silo because the CTA button at the top of the post is where you're going to push all the power to. And if you daisy chain all the rest of the post together using the inner page URL of the GMB website, not the share URL for the post, but the inner page URL. So post 1, supporting post 1, the CTA button links to the post URL from the top of silo post. Supporting post 2 links to post 1, right? So it's daisy chain together. B to A, or you know what I'm saying? So it's D to C, C to B, B to A to top of silo post. You understand what I'm saying? And then whatever your CTA button at the top is, that's where you're going to push all that power. Remember, this in itself doesn't have a lot of power, but when you start building links to all of the URLs in that silo, and then remember, guys, in case you didn't know this, you can embed GMB posts. You can iframe GMB posts as long as you're using the inner page URL. This can become an embed, an iframe right there. So you can do embeds in relevant content and then build links to the pages that have the embeds. So you can push a ton of power through a GMB post silo that daisy chains together, and all of the accrued or link equity at each one of these posts will go up, right? It's buoyant. That's another network empire. They said it creates buoyancy, right? It flows all the way up and out one location, that one CTA button URL at the top of silo post. And so that's why I call that a push silo, which is why I talk about doing a push silo for the GMB website, a push silo for the CID map URL, and a push silo for the location landing page if you have it. So again, back to this diagram, guys, I do a push silo for this, a push silo for this, and a push silo for this. And all you need is 3 push silos. You're welcome to do as many as you want. You can do as many as you want, but you only need 3 because you can just power the shit out of those push silos by building links to those URLs, right? Tier 2 links to those URLs, right? And so that becomes a push silo. Now this is a kind of a hybrid of the two. It's a push silo plus a modified map URLs. So if you take a look, if we click through the learn more button, this is going to go to post 5, post 4, post 3, post 2, top of silo post, or in this case, maybe there was only 5 posts, but that the CTA button at the top of silo post, in this case, linked to the CID map URL through a redirect. If we click back, you'll see I have if I copy link location, that is one of my TCHQ redirect links that I squeeze a keyword in there for, right? And I also, like I said, I like to use the TCHQ.link redirect so I can count and see and track the clicks. So that I know that Viper Tools is doing its thing. You know what I mean? For real. And so again, I like to be able to see those stats. And I thought I even, excuse me, guys, I think I even put an image about that in here. Let's see if I did. Yeah, right here. Daisy chain link click actions. And you can see this was from a couple of weeks ago, but those are the TCHQ links that I was just talking about, the short links. And these are, you know, you guys are all familiar with this. These are the clicks on those links, right? So what I'm saying is in this post silo, if we back up again, oh, you know what, that might have just been a push silo, and apparently that one was. Yeah. So let me go back up to one of the newer. Yeah, you know what I didn't do? I didn't, that was, I think, these posts down here. Let's check this one real quick. Whoops, that was top of silo post. Was that the one we were just looking at? I think it was. So let me go back to the previous silo. The previous silo is probably the ones that had the modified map URLs. Yeah, and that would be this. Yes. Okay. So this is it too. So this, again, this is still a push silo, but this is a different silo now. But what I did in this case was, instead of putting the modified map URL in the button, because I did a push silo, so they were daisy chained posts, I put the modified map URL as a redirect because it's a really long URL, right? The modified map URL is these right here. So what I did was I just created a redirect using my TCHQ.link shortener and I squeezed keywords in there, right? Just to add a little bit more keyword relevancy. And each one of these posts and this post silo, which is a push silo, has a text link to the modified map URL. You see that? See how the keyword up there, again, that's that query string at the end of the modified map URL right there. So I could swap that out with other keywords or whatever. But so each one of these posts, now that's going to link to the next post, different modified map URL, targeting a different node. Each one of those being targeted are listed right here. Does that make sense? So now I know that I've got these nodes targeted, which are listed here. And now anytime that I want, you know, again, this is not a good example just because it's not ranking well, but typically I would have it green here and, you know, maybe some greens around here, and it would start to turn yellow. And so those would be the ones that I would want to start pushing on first, the yellows, right? And in a lot of cases, you know, again, typically I would do like every other node. In this case, because they're 3 miles apart, I might actually do nodes side by side. But usually when I do 1 miles, and most of the time I'm doing this for tree service clients, it's 1 by 1, 1 mile spacing. So I usually do every other node, right? Because usually if you start targeting, like, you know, this node, for example, the nodes all around it will start to move too. Maybe not as aggressively as this one particular one will, because we're sending click traffic to that, but you'll start to see them move too. Does that make sense? So again, guys, that to me, like these kind of like modified map URLs, it's what I call this the proximity push campaign, and it works really, really well. It especially works. It works better if you have some green, and then wherever it's yellow, you start targeting the yellows, not when you're on an all red map, which is what we're looking at here. This was more for training purposes, but if you get all your on-page stuff done right, and then you've got some green wherever your yellows are, you start sending some traffic signals there, you'll start to see those move too. But don't forget about links and everything else, guys, especially if you're using a GMB post URL, as opposed to just sending traffic directly to that URL, that modified map URL. If you're doing the 1-2 punch, you might as well put it in a silo or whatever and start building links to those too. Okay. Okay, let's see if we got a few questions I can run through quickly. Is there anything that stands out at you, or should I just try to scroll through them quickly?
You know what? Probably just scrolling through them. There's quite a bit in there. Guys, let's not try to hold up Bradley too much. He went on a very generous amount of time today on his time here. I saw that it go from light to dark in your room there, Bradley.
Yeah, it's dark outside now, so
yeah, I think you've earned a good beer.
yeah. Well, I was talking about we're not going to go 6 hours, but we're at 3.5.
Yeah, you might be 4 by the time you get done. Let me see here on some questions. Let me scroll to the top and see what I can find.
I can see G in the Q&A box. G, who's a mastermind member. What's up, G? I'm always afraid I'm going to butcher his name, so it looks like Gurgly, so I just call him G. So anyways, what's up, G? I say, when you link back from the press release to the Press Advantage organization page, are you linking to the I_organization page? Yes, guys, like I said, I always use the I_ version of the organization page or individual press releases because it gets rid of the Press Advantage header, which would be splitting some of the link equity that I'm pushing into this page to Press Advantage, which it doesn't need it. Press Advantage got plenty of authority. I want to capture all the authority and send it to my target URLs. So I always use the I_ version of it when I'm doing, link building. Does that make sense? Michael says, have you ever checked your G.dot page, share URL and Majestic? No, I typically don't. I haven't, Michael, excuse me. I may, just because you pointed that out. So maybe I will check on that. But usually what I'll do is, like I said, guys, I try to treat my let me get this out of the way for just a minute. I try to treat and I got to be clear about this because I know everybody takes, when you say something like that's law, and that's not what I mean. But for what I try to do now with the GMB and website and the CID map. Now, don't get me wrong. I hammer GMB post silos with links. Although, like I said, I've been more recently using like tier 2 PBN links as opposed to straight spam links. And why is because I want to be kind of cognizant of what my anchor texts are and stuff like that. But I try to treat my GMB website, the main website URL, not an inner page, but the main website URL and the CID map is kind of like money sites. Like, in other words, what I try to treat all 3 of these as kind of like money assets now, as opposed to these just being tier 1 assets. And so what I'm saying is I try to get my anchor text ratios right. But one of the first things that I do is I don't like to link from press releases directly to the money site, except for initially, I like to do one press release with the URL anchor and one press release with the brand anchor. So that way, because remember, when we go back to the local link building workbook, I talked about anchor text ratios, and all I'm trying to do is get my anchor text ratios right. And the vast majority, about 80% of every tree service, sites that I'm analyzing for any search query, any keyword that I'm optimizing for, the top ranked local competitors in the organic section, typically, like I said, about 60 to 80% of the anchor text are going to 60 to 80% of the anchor texts are going to be in the brand/URL category. So what I like to do is pillow. Some of you might remember that have been around for a while, but I like to pillow my sites with brand and /URL anchors right off the bat. And I like to do that for my GMB website and the CID map URL as well. So I like to do press releases that link to each one of them. And if you notice in Press Advantage, like I've got a link right here, which is that's a follow link from the Press Advantage domain, both on the organization page as well as individual PRs. So those in and of themselves, just by nature of publishing press releases, I'm going to start building URL anchors, right? But also, if you take a look at the Digital Journal PR, which let's see if that popped up right here. That's it right there. In Press Advantage, I talk about this is a little bit of a hack. You'll notice there's also a link in the NAP here, which this goes to my ID page. Okay. Because right there inside of Press Advantage, where you put NAP, name, address, phone number, details, when you're creating your organization page, you can hack some HTML code in there. So what I like to do is I like to hyperlink the brand name there to another tier 1 entity asset, so that every single time a press release is published, Jeremy turned that off because when I revealed that, some of our SEOs in our mastermind spam the shit out of the NAP field. They started hacking in all their syndication network profile URLs. And like, next thing you know, there's this long string of links, because, you know, what happens when an SEO teaches something that works? Everybody abuses it, right? and that's, so Jeremy, he caught wind of it. And so he cut it off to where that does not appear on Press Advantage domain, but every single one of the syndication points that picks up and republishes the press release, that link is now live in the NAP area. So that's another way to start getting some branded anchors back to your tier one assets, is just go in there. You know, I publish usually about 2 press releases per month for almost every asset, most of the time. And so what I'll do is I'll publish 3 or 4 press releases, or, you know, whatever, maybe 1 month I'll do 2 press releases, and then I'll go in and I'll swap out whatever this link is here to another tier one asset. But one of the best targets for that is actually the ID page, to be honest with you. But you guys understand what I'm saying? So I like to start to pillow my sites originally with a press, because remember, you're going to get about 250 plus links from press releases, but only a handful of them are really good links, right? And so out of the 250 plus links that you get from Press Advantage on a normal distribution instead of a premium distribution, about 70 of them are follow links. Okay. So like I said, I like to go in and do 1 press release with the URL anchor, and then 1 with the brand anchor. And I do that for all 3 of these, so that I'm seeding each one of these assets with a heavy amount of brand / URL anchors. And then I strategically go in and start building target anchors. Remember, you're going to get empty anchors because of iframe stacks anyways. That's going to occur naturally through this infrastructure, right? So you don't need to worry about intentionally building those, because they're going to be built anyways. The Press Advantage organization page, the ID page, all that stuff, right? Iframing your assets into your G site, all of those become empty anchors. So that's going to be taken care of. So all I do is I go in and I start building these additional pieces of content with target anchors. So keyword plus city, until I get to the kind of ratios that I need to be. And then I just start hammering those with tier 2 links. And that's all it is. It's not about the number of links, guys, on your tier 1, or excuse me, to your money sites. It's about anchor text ratios, just getting it close. When in doubt, go heavy on brand / URL, and then you power up these assets. Just keep powering those up until you get the desired result, and send traffic to everything, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Bradley, I got a question here for somebody. Let's hear. Does it matter if you do all your daisy chain GMB posts the same day, one after another, just to get your links?
No, I mean, if you look at my examples here, guys, shit, sorry, let me go back. Okay, by the way, what just happened? Try again. All right, so by the way, guys, you see how this is the website, the business site, business.com. This is the location landing page. I do that for everybody, even clients, unless the client says they don't want their main money site as the appointment URL. But I try to explain, look, do you want more leads, or do you want your website to be shown in the website button? Does it matter? They're both present in the knowledge panel. They're both present in maps. They're both present. I can get you better results. And if they don't want it, they don't want it. But I do try to explain to them, look, guys, I can get you faster results if I put your money site there. So I'm sorry, what was the question again? I just lost track of it.
Does it matter if you do all your daisy chain GMB posts the same day, one after another, just to get your links?
It doesn't matter. If you notice, I mean, these were for training purposes, but honestly, generally what I do is I have a VA that I task to do these post silos for me. And I just send in a post silo and I say, just publish it. Because to me, there's something else that I do with my GMB stuff, which is activity posts. So like I said, I do 3 push silos if there's a location landing page. If there's not, then I'll just do 2 push silos, 1 to the GMB map, CID map, and 1 to the GMB website, right? So what I do is I do those 2 silos or 3 silos if there's a location landing page, and then I just start powering them up, just start hammering them away with links. But we do activity posts, at least 1 post per week, always to every GM. Well, I don't always do it to lead gen assets, but for clients, every client gets at least 1 post per week. Oftentimes it's more. And we can automate that, by the way, using RSS feeds. If you're using the OneUp GMB post scheduler, they have a great RSS post to GMB function, or post to all of the social media accounts, but I usually only connect to GMB and sometimes Facebook pages. But you can post via RSS. And the beautiful thing is you can use, if you have a money site and you're publishing blog posts, then you can use your blog site your money site RSS feed to auto post to GMB for activity posts. GMB post silos are manual. You can still do them manually in like a post scheduler like OneUp because it's just easier to do them there, but it's still a manual process. That's why I only do a couple of push silos manually, and then it's done. Everything else is automated activity posts because we use RSS feeds. If it's got a money site, we use the RSS money feed from the money site to auto post. Any post that gets published on the blog will auto post to the GMB. It will pull the featured image in as the image. It will pull in the title as the text only. So whatever the blog post title is, there's the post text, that's it. And then the button URL you have two options in OneUp. You can either have it link back to the post URL itself, or you can designate a specific URL that every post will link to from the CTA button. So you can actually think about this. If you don't have a money site and you're not blogging, you can find a relevant content feed from some other source. I call it OPC, other people's content, right? Find a relevant content source from from somebody else's feed and set the URL, the button URL using the OneUp app so that our RSS feed will push content into your GMB regularly on autopilot without you having to do a damn thing. And you just set the CTA button URL to your GMB website or your CID map or your location landing page or whatever you want, and allow somebody else's RSS feed to automate activity posts in your GMB, right? As long as it's a relevant feed, the title is going to be somewhat relevant. Like if I go find, and I've got, we've got a Feedly Pro account that my bloggers have access to a ton of RSS feeds from tree service stuff, all kinds of stuff. And so I can just go in and pull a feed from one of those and set up an RSS automation through OneUp, and it will, auto post with it's just the title. And the title is usually going to be about something relevant. And it's going to link back to one of my assets where it's likely going to be covered anyways, right? And honestly, I don't give a shit whether the post is really fully relevant or not. It's about what I'm saying is if like the title that gets published is, it says something that isn't actually really talked about on the site that it's linking to from the CTA button, it's still related, right? Still tree service post. And so anyway, long story short, what I'm saying is, yes, we do these manually. Usually we just bang them out because my GMB post silos are usually 5 or 6 posts. People say, well, why did you choose 5 or 6 posts? I don't know. I just chose 5 or 6 when I first started doing this, and it's always worked. So I just kept doing it. You might get better results with 12 posts. You might be able to achieve results with 3 posts, but I just have always done 5 or 6 posts. And so we'll bang that out all at once. And then we set up automated activity posts using RSS feeds. Oh, the Press Advantage organization gives you an RSS feed too. So you can auto post your PRs to your GMB as well.
Yeah, that's genius. Okay, Richie asks, that was a great one too, Punch. It would probably help if you added a geolocation in a pic and a post in the GMB. Is that correct?
Yes. And I didn't cover that, but it's in the GMB process checklist, guys. I talk about this. Let me close out of here for a minute. If we go into the profile specifically, we talk about photos. Upload a minimum of 5 geotag photos with logo and text overlay. Again, I learned this also from Matt Bowley, which is it's the power of Thanos, but for GMB. It's essentially the exact same thing. If we take a look at any one of these posts, guys, you'll see if we open in new tab. Well, I thought it would be a little bit bigger. Anyways, there's the logo. There's the keyword tree service Ruckersville, VA right there. NAP data is right there. And then right down there is the map URL, and the map share URL can go there because the bot reads that and will, it's essentially just, it's just to follow. It doesn't, you're not pushing any SEO juice by putting a CID map there. So you can put the share URL there. Does that make sense? I know you can't see it, but it's because I've got the transparency turned way up, but you can, it's very slight. You can see it a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really slick.
So those are geotagged and watermarked photos. And by the way, guys, you can take the same set of images, and I have a VA that goes to YouTube and will search like tree removal. Then they'll go to filters and select HD only so that it's only HD videos. And then they'll click through and they'll do the theater view or whatever so that it gets bigger. The video gets bigger, and they'll set the resolution to the highest setting, usually 1080p or whatever. And then they'll I have a VA that just goes through and finds images like this in the middle of a video. And then he screenshots them big. And then we shrink them down to about a 600 by 400 dimension. And that makes them sharp again. And then so that's how we get 100% unique images that are relevant, because it's all tree service related images, but they're grabbed as screenshots from YouTube videos. And then we geotag them and watermark them. And that same batch of photos, and I usually have them do 100 photos at a time, can be used multiple times across multiple assets or locations, because every time they're geotagged and watermarked, they become unique. Does that make sense? So you can use the same batch of images over and over and over again, because they're going to be watermarked and geotagged for the specific location, which makes them unique.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Someone asked this earlier. Bradley, can you share this Viper Tools -GMB recipes presentation?
Yeah, I put it in chat already.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
just did that right there.
There was one earlier today from Aaron, and Aaron asked about your mastermind, if you had a special offer, a link for your, not for your platinum, for your mastermind.
No, guys, the special offer is the quarterly. Excuse me. If we go and Michael, if anybody joins from today to the mastermind,
go for it.
Well, if anybody joins from today, the mastermind, you will get an onboarding call with me for 30 minutes, because I do that with all of our new mastermind members, so I can get to know you and your business a little bit. And just mention it to me that you came from Michael's group, so that we can make sure Michael gets credit. He does not have an affiliate link for this yet, but anyway, guys, if you click on that right there, it takes you to our sales page. The offer, the special, is available to anybody. It's the quarterly offer, which is $497 for 3 months, $500 for 3 months. Okay. So that is the special, guys. You can join monthly for $297 or quarterly for $497. You do the math. But like I said, if anybody does end up joining in your onboarding call with me, please mention that, so that we can make sure Michael gets credit.
Hey, don't worry about me, man. I'm happy just sending people over to you.
Sweet. Well, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hear any other questions. I see 14 new messages, but I'm not seeing them. Oh, wait, geez, sorry guys, that just popped up there. Okay, super awesome image. BioLocal, was that GeoGrids? Bright Local, was that with GeoGrids? Yeah, it was, Michael Merlino.
Yeah, I use Bright Local. I have been for years. So sorry.
Let's see here. Can you explain what the mastermind is like? It's like this, but plugged up to the time machine. So yeah, Bradley, you want to talk about your mastermind here?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have shit. I thought, man, I don't know if I sent that or not. I mean, like what I just shared today, guys, is, I do bi-weekly mastermind webinars on Thursday every 2 weeks. And they're like this. They usually go about 2 hours, sometimes a little bit longer. And I'm an open book. I share absolutely everything in my mastermind. I hold nothing back. I show my own assets. The only thing I don't do is, sometimes I'll show client assets, but I ask permission first and they'll give it to me, or else I won't show it. But I show a lot of my own lead gen assets in there. And like I said, I don't hide anything or hold anything back in the mastermind. I've got my other partners, Chris and Adam, and Adam does a webinar for his stuff, which is like, he does like productivity stuff, but I do all, GMB stuff, guys. All I've done is local for years. That's all I care to do. Like I said, more recently, I started doing some more organic SEO stuff. But yeah, I mean, essentially what we just went through today is what I do in the mastermind all the time. And that's, again, it's every other week, but I also host a couple of mini mastermind accountability groups. Like, for example, we have one on Mondays I started a directory for treecarehq.com. It's treecarehq is in headquarters.com. And it's a great prospecting method to get in front of clients. I use my directory as a way to initiate conversations with my target prospects, which are tree service contractors. And so on Monday, I have an accountability group with a couple of my mastermind members that are also building a directory. So we call it the directory agency model accountability group. Every Thursday, I have a sales mastermind with some members of our group where we meet and we're going through a book called the Mindset of a Sales Warrior by Jason Forrest. It's fantastic. It's 42 chapters. And every week we'd go through another chapter, and then we work that chapter for the week and come back the next week and talk about our experiences and then, all that kind of stuff. So we have these mini mastermind groups as well. I have one, Adam has one. We also have like other, so it's great. I love it. Like it's always been my passion. And so if you like today, mastermind is very similar to what you get there. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, Bradley. Okay, guys, any last questions?
Sorry, guys. I'm just I got messages coming in like, where are you?
Also, you get free beer if you go to Bradley's mastermind. Free beer.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can have a beer together on our onboarding call, but generally those are during business hours. So Richie says, I joined Mastermind with Brady. I couldn't recommend anything more. This plus Bose Platinum is all you need. Both are incredible. Oh, thanks, Richie. I appreciate that very much, man. And yeah, Richie's in also in my Build with Bradley group. Oh yeah, that's the other group I got. Every other week on the weeks that on Thursday, on the weeks that I'm not doing mastermind, because I do my mastermind webinar every 2 weeks, but on the off week, every other week I do this what's called Build with Bradley group. And that's a mass page group. It's another accountability group where we're just doing mass page, but it's really turned into just flat out SEO group. And the only prerequisite is you either have to be in the mastermind or you have to have bought Magic Page plugin through Semantic Mastery's link. If you have either one of those, you can join that. You can request to build with Bradley group. And that's just another accountability group that I host. So
Richie's been chowing down, probably drinking beer at Applebee's the whole time. Nice job there, Richie. Unfortunately, his internet went out at home, so it looks like he's been chilling at Applebee's. Dude, I'm surprised you didn't get kicked out, man. That's awesome. That's great. Any last questions for Bradley?
Well, you guys can tell I love this stuff. You know, I'm a total nerd when it comes to it. And it's great to see some familiar names in here, even people that aren't in the mastermind. And Michael Merlino, he's still in here chatting. And dude, that's awesome, man. I'm so proud of you, man. I remember years and years and years ago when you, I remember when you engaged with Semantic Mastery on some Hump Day Hangouts and stuff. And it's great to see how far you've come, dude. I'm really impressed with what you've got going on, man. So that's amazing. And, you know, we've been around for a long time, guys. Like I said, on Wednesday this week is episode 364. For Hump Day Hangouts, which is an hour every week that we give away free just to answer questions. And 7-year anniversary, I've always loved Hump Day Hangouts. And so again, anybody that doesn't join the mastermind, if you have any questions, you can come to Hump Day Hangouts and ask me questions there every Wednesday. It's fine. You can post your questions ahead of time. semanticmastery.com/HDHO for Hump Day Hangouts. That'll take you to the page. You can post questions. Just know that at Hump Day Hangouts, it's free. It's open to the public. So I will talk about things conceptually, but I won't go in and share detail like what I did today, because they have to come to the mastermind or somewhere behind closed doors to see that. So just know that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome, Bradley. And yeah, Hump Day Hangouts, man. I remember the good old days. Hump Day Hangouts.
We still have that camel at the top.
Man, that goes way back when, man. That goes all the way back to me, Remax days.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, we're probably going to end it here for Bradley since he's getting a ton of messages. Bradley, I really appreciate it, man, today. This was a complete unloading, man. This was awesome. And I really cannot tell you how much I learned, how much everybody else learned, I'm sure. It was top of the line, awesome shiznit. So thank you so much for coming in.
Well, my pleasure. And like I said, guys, I'm telling you, if you go through that GMB process checklist, I've not had one single location that I've applied that method to, that process to, that I have not ranked in the MAPS 3-pack, even really competitive stuff. And in which case I have to do all of it. But, you know, non-competitive or like low competition stuff, you get 25% into the tier 1 link building and start building tier 2 links to your assets as they get completed, and you'll start to rank. And that leaves you all that stuff in reserve. And the checklist, if you run a checklist for each location, then you'll always know when you come back, like what hasn't been done yet, right? So it's just a great way to organize. And so last thing I just want to mention, guys, one other thing is like the directory agency model. If anybody looking for clients or lead buyers, if you're doing lead gen, I'm telling you that directory method works like crazy. I've got a whole system that I built in high level, go high level, people call it, but it's high level. And I give away like in the mastermind, all kinds of stuff on that, but like on how to use a directory as an outreach to start initiate a conversation with your target prospect. And out of my entire career as a digital marketing SEO type, it is by far the most successful prospecting method I've ever had. And I've got a whole system built around that. So if you guys need clients, that's a great strategy. And I would encourage you to check it out. So
that's awesome. Well, Bradley, we've got you at almost 4 hours, 3 hours and 46 minutes. So
right on.
What I'm trying to figure out here is another 2 hours of content that we can drag out of you.
Yeah. Well, let's schedule that for next month then.
That's awesome.
I'll figure out something.
All right. Well, Bradley, thank you again for coming in, man. I really do appreciate it. You're always sharing the best of the best information. And you're one of the top SEOs. Actually, you're the top SEO, dude. So
thanks.
I really appreciate it, man. Love having you in here. And see you next time. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Michael.
See you later.